we good to go? Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're meeting for this Planning and Development Committee meeting at Council Chambers in Shire Hall. My name is John Hirsch. I'm the Councillor for South Marysburg Ward, and I'll be the chair for this meeting. Members of the public who wish to speak at a Planning and Development Committee meeting are invited to register with the clerk's office in advance. These meetings are public meetings as required under the Planning Act and will deal with the planning applications listed on the agenda. Tonight's agenda lists all the items before the committee for consideration. Copies of the agenda have been posted on our website. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in the meeting proceedings will become part of the public record. Recording from the meeting will be published on the county's website immediately and can be viewed by selecting the live stream tab on the bottom right of the county's homepage at thecounty.ca. Personal information collected as a result of this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making decisions on these matters. Persons speaking at the meeting are requested to give their name for recording in the minutes. For those present here in the Shire Hall Council Chambers, please remember to sign in using the sheet located near the media desk to my right over there. All speakers' names, opinions, and comments may be collected and may form part of the minutes which will be available to the public. The first portion of tonight's meeting, under Section 5, Statutory Public Meetings Pursuant to the Planning Act, is to present planning applications in a public forum so the proponent and the public have an opportunity to be heard in front of the decision-making committee prior to an application being reviewed by staff. The agenda includes an overview of the planning application before the municipality, but there is no staff report at this stage and no decisions on these applications will be made this evening. Each application will be discussed individually, first with the presentation by the applicant, owner, or agent, and then the meeting will be opened to the public for comments and questions. If there are no questions or concerns from anyone present, I will conclude the statutory public meeting for this item or application. Under Section 6, I will be asking for comments from the audience on items listed under Items for Consideration, Section 7. This is where comments related to matters before the committee for decision should be heard. This evening we have 5 comments from the audience pre-registered. If anyone else present would like to speak at this section of the agenda on an item listed under Items for Consideration, you are welcome to do so. Members of the public who wish to provide comments at future meetings can do so by contacting clerks@pecounty.on.ca to register. A reminder that if you participate, your name, opinion, and comment will be included in the committee meeting minutes and form part of the public record and posted to the county's website. The second portion of tonight's meeting, Section 7, Items for Consideration, is to consider applications that have held a statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act, and the committee will be asked to make decisions. These items include reports attached to the agenda, which contain a staff recommendation, typically to approve with conditions or to deny a planning application. After the planners, applicants, owners, or agents' presentation, committee members will be able to ask questions of staff, the applicant, owner, or agent. Following the question and answer period, I will call for a motion to approve the recommendations as presented. The Planning and Development Committee will make a recommendation to approve, amend, or to deny a planning application. Council has the final say on the applications. All bylaws on this agenda will be approved at the next feasible council meeting. Following council's decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. So with that preamble, lengthy preamble over, let's move to the agenda. Under item 2 on the agenda, I would call for a confirmation of the agenda. Could I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Roberts, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a Roberts-Pennell motion that the agenda for the Special Planning and Development Committee meeting of March 5, 2025 be confirmed.
All those in favor? That carries. Brings us to item 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Does anyone have anything to disclose? Seeing nothing. Item 4 for presentations. We have no presentations this evening. And that brings us then to item 5, which is the statutory public meetings. Planning and Development Committee shall now consider matters where a public planning meeting is required to hear applications under the Planning Act. The purpose of a statutory public meeting is to allow the committee to gather information on the applications before us, to hear those wishing to make submissions on applications, and to allow the committee to ask questions of the applicants, the public, and staff. Persons wishing to appeal decisions on planning matters may be required to demonstrate that they have made written submissions to council or oral submissions at a public meeting. Every member of the public speaking today is requested to state their name for the public record, which will form part of the meeting minutes. In the interest of time, the committee respectfully asks that you keep your comments to no more than 5 minutes. So item 5.1 is consent and rezoning file number B125 and Z125, David McKibbon, 1346 County Road 12, Ward 2, Bloomfield, Hallowell. So I will ask the question, does the planner, applicant, owner, or agent wish to speak or provide a presentation with respect to their application? Mr. O'Connor, good to see you. We haven't seen you in ages.
Good to see you too. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Brendan O'Connor. I'm a land use planning consultant, and I'm here acting as the agent on behalf of the applicant, David McKibbon. The subject application is considered a technical consent or a lot addition. The purpose of the consent is to add 491 square meters of land to the neighboring property, which is the site of a single detached dwelling. This site is also owned by the applicant's son. Upon recent investigation by the applicant, it was discovered that part of the tile bed for the existing septic system on the benefiting lands extended beyond the property line onto the applicant's lands. The subject application for consent is meant to correct this, as well as include enough land to provide the required setbacks between the septic bed and the property line as per the Ontario Building Code. The subject lands where the lot addition is proposed is currently zoned the heavy industrial zone and is the site of an automobile garage. The benefiting lands is currently zoned the rural residential 1 zone. As part of the application, an enhanced phase 1 environmental assessment was completed. The area where the lot addition is proposed has no history of industrial uses, and the enhanced phase 1 concluded with support for the proposal, and no further environmental work was recommended. The subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and also conforms to the official plan. As part of the application, the lands within the lot addition will be rezoned to the rural residential 1 zone to match that of the benefiting property. This concludes my comments regarding the application, and I hope these key points help in your understanding of the application. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So does the committee have any questions of the agent? Councillor Pennell.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, has the proper signage been up on the property a minimum of 20 days before tonight's meeting?
I can confirm it was, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. O'Connor? No, okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing none. So there's no questions we have no speakers other than the agent. Does any member of the committee have any additional questions? You can ask staff a question at this point on process matters if you want. Seeing none, okay. May I get a mover and seconder to receive the oral submissions for information? Councillor Nyman, Councillor Prinzen. I can read it for you if you like. That the oral submissions pertaining to planning application B104-21, B105-21, and Z83-21 be received for information. All in favor? Thank you. So I will now declare that the statutory public meeting on this matter has now concluded at 6:11 p.m. That brings us to item 5.2, which is a consent and rezoning file number B8820, B8920, and Z7620, Douglas Brown and Matthew Brown, Lighthall Road, south of 497 County Road 24, Ward 5 of Athol. Does the planner, applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak? I believe we have representation from Jennifer Matthews and Doug Brown. So if you'll state your name for the record, please. And you have 10 minutes total.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Matthews. I'm a planning coordinator at Watson Land Surveyors, and we're the agent for this file. The subject landowner, Doug Brown, is also in attendance tonight. We'll be splitting our 10 minutes time slot that we're allotted. I will touch on the application itself, and if there's any questions, Doug will be addressing the hydro-G and the findings in that. I would like to start by clarifying that this application is a legacy file. It was submitted in November of 2020 under the old official plan dated 2006, which permitted 2 severances within a land holding as of 1998. The subject land is in Part Lot 5, Concession 3, south side of East Lake in the township of Athol. It's currently approximately 19.5 hectares in area, and the application is to sever 2 vacant lots. On this slide, you will see each proposed lot as viewed from Lighthall Road. Looking west, each proposed lot currently has a new blasted and dug well located on it, which you can see on these slides. It's in the red writing with the arrows down. The proposed parcels are currently agricultural fields, generally flat, with a slight slope towards County Road 24. On this slide, you can see a copy of our severance sketch on the left-hand side with 2 lots. You can see that they're separated. Severed A is on the south and B is a little farther north. Each of these lots is identical in size with 61 meters of frontage and 0.8 hectares in area. The retained parcel will have an area of 17.9 hectares with 510 meters of road frontage split between County Road 24 and Lighthall Road. And then just a few items for consideration by this committee. The planning application was submitted in November of 2020. The application was deemed complete, and official plan land use designation at the time of the application was rural. Zoning of the subject land at the time of the application was RU2. Hydro-G requested by staff and Quinte Conservation in August of 2021 and was completed by ASC Environmental in September 2023. The peer reviewer required treatment options from water companies, which are client provided. Quinte Conservation comments received had no objection to these applications, and both proposed lots meet the minimum lot frontage and area for new lots in Prince Edward County. And to date, everything that the planning department has requested of our client, we have provided. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Jennifer, and you said Mr. Brown's available to us?
Yeah,
or did you want to speak, Mr. Brown, or are you just available for questions?
Either or. I have a short presentation. It's a bit of a repeat, but...
You still have time if you want to go.
So my name's Doug Brown. Good evening. I'm the property owner and have made the application for consent and severance of the 2 lots that are shown in the sketch that Jennifer just presented. We went ahead and witched the property and identified water sources on the property, and that's why the lots are located where they are on the sketch. We used Frank's drill and blast to come and drill and blast the wells. They're approximately 25 feet deep. Both wells have been registered, pumped down and registered by Frank's Drill and Blast. We have a certification tag on each well. The first is at 13 gallons per minute. The second is at 15 gallons per minute, just to underscore the fact that the water quality is, or the water quantity is sufficient. The plan is to have them into residential, rural residential usage. This is just a quick shot of the well certificates that are on file. A couple pictures, pictures worth 1,000 words. The water inflows were heavy when they were drilled, even though it was July. Yeah, my brother is a good witcher. The wells were drilled and blasted twice with ammonia nitrate. And that did have some effects when we were doing the hydrogeological study. It resulted in the nitrates being higher in the water than permittable initially. So as we did the pump down tests over time, through the hydrogeological study, we found that there was no impact to any of the neighboring wells on the Lighthall Crossroad, and that the water quality and quantity did eventually meet the requirements of the provincial standard. So it took some time, and that's part of the reason that the file has dragged on a little bit. We did pump downs in the middle of the driest times of the year, late into August, and to show that the water quantity was sufficient, which anybody in the county knows. If you're going to get water in Point Peter, it can be tough. But if you have a good witcher, you can find it. It's there. So that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, and congratulations on having good wells. That's
It's tough, but if you need the name of a good witcher,
we'll keep your number. Does the committee have any questions for the applicant or their agent? Not seeing any questions. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to this item? I'm not seeing any. Okay. So there have been no speakers other than the applicant. Does any member of the committee have any other additional questions for staff, perhaps? No? Seeing none. Can I have a mover then a mover and seconder to receive the oral submission for information? Councillor Roberts and Councillor Brandhorst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a Roberts-Branderhurst motion that the oral submission for file number B88-20, B89-20, and Z76-20 be received for information.
All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. So I will now declare that the statutory public meeting on this matter is now concluded at 6:18 p.m. Moving right along. That brings us to item 5.3, which is official plan amendment and rezoning file OPA 0224 and Z1224, Blanding Inc., operating as Lakecroft at 4 County Road 18 and 89 Sandy Lane, Ward 5 of Athol. Does the planner, applicant, owner, agent wish to speak or provide a presentation?
Hi, I'm the agent on the file. Oh, thank you so
And
much.
are you Jessica Daou?
Yes, I'm Jessica Daou.
Good. Thank you.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I am Jessica Daou. I'm a planning consultant with Arcadis, and I am the authorized agent for the owners of the property who are here with me tonight as well, Anna and Matthew Malek. Down? Sorry, thank you. We are here tonight to present the zoning amendment and official plan amendment for the site municipally known as 89 Sandy Lane, or its second address, 4 County Road 18 in the hamlet of Cherry Valley. The site is approximately 5.96 hectares in size, with 47.5 meters of frontage on County Road 18, and is a waterfront property situated on the south side of East Lake. It is currently operating under the rebranded name Lakecroft, but was historically known and used as a campground and cottage rental site, locally known as Cherry Lane Campground and Cottages. To the immediate north of the site, as noted, is East Lake. To the east is open space, including wetlands, a public park, a boat launch, and single detached dwellings fronting onto County Road 18. To the south of the site includes residential uses and aggregate resource with single detached dwellings fronting onto County Road 18 as well as a pit operation further south. To the west is commercial and industrial areas with general industrial lands even further to the west. This proposed development area within the site is situated over 140 meters from the closest existing residential property, with additional buffering provided by the wetlands on the site, which will remain undeveloped. This site has a long history of operations with a wide range of uses, and for at least 50 years has operated as a campground and cottage rental business. The site previously accommodated a minimum of 145 guests daily, including over 40 trailer, tent, and cottage accommodations, as well as vehicles, boats, and seasonal docks. Daily use of the site included 41 trailer sites, including daily pull-through trailer sites, as well as tent sites, 4 cottages, 1 multifamily residential dwelling, seasonal docks and boat docks, and various other accessory buildings and uses listed on the screen above. So this is just some imagery. To the left is a Google aerial imagery of the subject site in 2015, as well as the trailer uses and cottages, which have since been removed from the site. Since their purchase of the property in 2019, the present owners, Anna and Matthew, are the owners and operators of the site, and they also live within the community. They have reduced the overall footprint of the operations and are transitioning the business to overall simplify the uses while also improving site conditions. And some of those efforts include shoreline cleanup, including debris and docks, planting of over 400 native species along 700 feet of shoreline within the floodline, which will not be developed or disturbed, elimination of the trailers and subsequent reduction in vehicle traffic, reduction of waste in resource usage, and removal of all trailer sites, as well as 3 cottages. They have also provided glamping tents and motel suites within the existing building, resulting in more limited overnight accommodations than was previously existing. To address their desired site changes and future development plans, the owners initially began consultations with county staff in 2021, with formal pre-application consultation requirements conducted in June. The comments and requirements provided by the county in June 2023 for the zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment. And this is just some imagery to show the examples of the overall de-intensification of the subject site. And this is 2023 imagery, as well as images of the glamping tents and soft landscaping on the site. As mentioned, the owners are now proposing new development and a shifting of the permitted uses on site with the overall intent of reducing the development footprint and overnight accommodations on the property. Previously, over 40 accommodation units were provided, and now a total of 15 units are proposed. Other overall site changes include retaining the existing boutique motel with 5 motel suites and 1 existing tourist cottage, introducing a total of 9 glamping tents for overnight accommodation, 6 of which are existing now, adding an additional permitted use on the site being an event venue, which I'll speak to in more detail, and constructing a new building to serve for hosting weddings, corporate retreats, and gatherings. They are also providing parking for each use at the rates required under the zoning bylaw, and access will continue via the existing laneways from County Road 18. To proceed with the proposed changes, the development applications required include an official plan amendment to permit additional uses in the hamlet designation, a zoning bylaw amendment to permit rezoning from tent and trailer park, the current zoning with a site-specific exception, to now a site-specific tourist commercial zone, as well as a site plan application. A complete application to county staff was submitted in May of 2024, which included the requirement for various technical studies, plans, and reports prepared by professional consultants, and comments were originally provided by the county in July. It should be noted that none of the comments were raising significant issues or concerns with the proposal, and were just simply a typical request for further information, clarification on the studies, or site adjustments. The consulting team has been working since that time on responses to the comments and has just completed its responses to those for submission back to the county this week. So this is just a proposed site plan. It is a little bit challenging to read all of those I recognize on the screen, but just sort of broad overview. Parking and laneways are shown in the dark gray hatching. The proposed parking now exceeds zoning bylaw requirements when considering the requirements for all proposed uses and buildings on the site. And then the access to the zoning requirements will be naturalized where possible. And then no development or site alterations are proposed within the protected wetland areas on the site. As mentioned, the initial iterations of the plans that were submitted to the county included the event venue use, which would be situated in a temporary tent or shelter tent as an outdoor venue. But upon further discussion, as well as review of community comments received to date, it was determined to be much more appropriate and functional for noise mitigation and overall site functionality to remove the shelter tent and instead propose a designated building for the venue as shown in these renders. The building will contain a kitchen area, accessible washrooms, and also will be fully accessible otherwise. These are just the 2D elevations of the building. And then in terms of landscaping, soft landscaping has included the introduction of 28 different native plant species along the shoreline, and additional soft landscaping will be provided across the site and existing trees retained where possible. The existing policy context, it's existing hamlet designation and environmental protection area. The hamlet designation permits a wide range of dwelling types, bread and breakfast establishments, and small-scale commercial uses, among others, and the EP designation does not permit any new development. The site is also located within the tourism corridor municipal designation, which encourages appropriate tourist-related developments in suitable locations. An official plan amendment is required to place the property in a site-specific policy area, which will remain hamlet with special provisions to specify additional permitted uses on site, including the tourist commercial, motel, and event venue. Again, the existing campground site or former campground site use has existed for the past 50 years, and this change is consistent with the former and historic use of the property. The existing zoning is trailer park commercial with an exception 10, environmental protection and limited service residential. The TPC zone permits the travel trailer, tent, or recreational vehicle uses, mobile restaurant, and other related accessory uses. The EP zone is essentially for conservation and natural retention and prohibits buildings and structures. And the LSR includes permissions for a single detached dwelling, among other accessory uses. The zoning bylaw amendment is to permit tourist commercial with a site-specific exception, with a site-specific exception to permit the proposed event venue use and to recognize the other tourist commercial uses while limiting to those that are appropriate for the context and maintaining flexibility at the same time for evolution of the business. The EP zone will be retained. As previously mentioned, there were a number of technical studies and reports that were required by the county through the initial submission. This is a very high-level overview of some of the key studies, but overall there was a servicing evaluation prepared, which confirms the existing private wells and septics are sufficient in terms of capacity to service the site and the proposed uses. The stormwater brief demonstrates that it's possible to provide the necessary stormwater management to mitigate adverse effects of the development. Traffic study was prepared and identifies that the development would not have significant impact on the surrounding road network. A butternut health assessment was completed, and none of the butternut trees were determined to be anything further than Category 1, so they are not required for protection. However, they will be protected through the development.
Jessica, I'll note that you have 30 seconds left.
Perfect, it's my second last slide. And I'll just sort of wrap up by saying that all of these studies that were completed by retained consultants demonstrate that the proposed uses for the site are appropriate. Finally, I'll just conclude with going quickly through the proposed draft zoning bylaw. You can see on the screen, the intent is to limit the uses to a certain number of the tourist commercial uses, not the entire extent of them. Particularly the event venue and the motel will be limited to the existing building, and the event venue will have a maximum number of guests. And then among that, there will be some site-specific provisions. So I will conclude there, and I'm happy to address any questions.
Thank you very much. So does the committee have any questions for the agent for the project? Councillor Pennell.
I was curious on the one slide on the cleaning up. It was either cleaning up chemicals or clean up chemicals. The fact that you've noted that would almost imply that there was a fair amount. Was there? Or?
Through the chair, my understanding is that this was just sort of debris left over on site and mitigating the use of cleaning chemicals, like actual cleaning chemicals for the number of accommodations, trailers, and so forth that were required, not specific chemicals that were found on the site. There also would have been propane tanks and things like that used for the trailer park uses, and those were removed from the site as well. But there haven't been any environmental concerns that were raised as a result of that, if that was sort of the direction of the question.
Follow up?
Yeah, this would be to staff, and that is, was there any concern whatsoever?
Councillor Pennell, we're only directing questions to the
Oh,
agent now.
okay, sorry.
Staff questions will come later. Anyone else? Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. Good presentation. Well done. Thank you. So at the moment, you're basically a wedding event venue. Is that correct? And you're evolving into a broader tourist accommodation complex. Is that correct?
Through the chair, so currently it is only functioning as an event venue in accordance with the special provisions of the bylaws for special events. So the intention is to introduce that as a new use and then also provide for provisions and permissions related to the existing motel use that's an existing non-complying use on the property and sort of recognizing those uses that were previously existing on the trailer park use under this new zoning provision.
So I'm taking all that means yes, that you are evolving from a wedding event venue to a more conventional roofed accommodation for tourism.
Yes. So the primary focus would be for event venue and subsequent accommodations for guests of the event venue and things like that, yes. But, yeah, that's right.
One little follow-up.
Sure.
I've never seen elopement packages before. I thought that was a pretty interesting branding. So does that work well? Are elopements increasing? I mean, I think your package runs about $2,600 or so for a 2-hour elopement. It must be. Is it a good business? Is basically what I'm asking.
Through the chair, I'm the planning consultant, so I can't speak to the business details of elopements, but the wedding industry generally is probably quite expensive, so maybe it's something that's becoming more popular, but I would have to have the owner speak to the business details. I'm sorry, I don't have the... Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. You're saying under the existing zoning, small-scale events, but you want to allow for flexibility of future use. Could you maybe just expand briefly on what you mean by flexibility for future use?
Through the chair, it's essentially just allowing for minor increases to potential accommodations if that's the route that the applicants would like to go, or essentially not limiting the number and types of events that could be hosted on the site as long as they're within the parameters of what is permitted under the proposed bylaw.
Okay, and so 100 guests would be, that's at an event, or is that the event and the and whoever is accommodated on the site?
Through the chair, that would be the 100 guest maximum for an event. And that's enshrined just to ensure that there is a cap on the number of site users for each event that could be possible. The site users, there's only a total of 15 accommodation spaces available, assuming 2 people per space potentially. So that would be inherently limited through the more minimal sort of accommodations. And these things are all dealt with and confirmed to remain as proposed now through the site plan control process that would be registered on title.
Follow up?
Yep. Just looking for, I didn't really see, and I know this is still, somewhat preliminary, but for noise abatement and the time that it would be quiet time.
Through the chair, this would be subject to the county's bylaws that for noise mitigation. So they would just follow those bylaws that are currently in place.
Thank you. Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a couple questions. So I think I missed part of it when you said there was a trailer park and you're removing some trailer sites, and then I see a motel. So you're building a motel with 9 bedrooms. Is that my understanding or no?
Through the chair, the motel actually existed previously on the site prior to the owners purchasing it. It had, I believe, 4 units within the motel. The motel has since been renovated, and so this is capturing that existing non-complying use on the site. There is no new motel to be constructed, so enshrined within the zoning would be that the motel would be permitted as it currently stands in its present footprint, so there would be no expansion to that.
And the motel then is down by the water.
The motel is directly adjacent to County Road 18. So the site in its current function is effectively sort of 2 parcels separated by the wetland. The motel is situated directly adjacent and accessed from County Road 18. The event venue, and I am happy to share this site plan, maybe that would be more helpful as well. But the event venue would be situated closer to the waterfront area in that sort of sector of the site.
So the motel is actually going to be the house, and that was on County Road 18, is that? I'm just trying to follow it along.
Sure, yes. It's a large site with a lot of elements, so understandably so. So the motel is situated where that cursor is exactly. And then there is a chalet, existing chalet building that is permitted already, situated close to where the venue is, down in that, no, just a little closer to the access way. Am I able to point?
Next question.
My eyes are not as good to be able to read this, but there is a chalet space that is situated to the left of where you see the hatching for the event venue. There is a small chalet there that's just a sort of one rental building situation. The motel is completely separated, and there is no other motel to be proposed located on the site.
Oh, okay. So, thanks for the explanation. So can I ask the second question?
Please go ahead.
So I'm just wondering, I was looking through and I seen it's got 2 entrances to the site. One is going down to Lions Park, I think it is, or the park right there, and then turns off into the driveway. And then the other one, I believe, is beside the house, or going to be the motel, I guess. So, I guess I'm just trying to figure out, and I'm not sure right now, and maybe somebody can answer this, if, is that little section of the road maintained right now by Prince Edward County? I mean, in the wintertime also? I'm just wondering, are we looking at extra cost here for the municipality, or how are you going to have all these entrances, or these entrances, with the motel right at the County Road 18 now?
Through the chair, if I may respond to that, because this will simplify your question. We are actually proposing to close the access that is from that boat launch road, so it will no longer be the access to the site. This sole access will be on the property owner's true property, which is just to the left of the existing motel building. So there won't be a secondary access via the boat launch road.
Okay, thank you.
Any other member of the committee have a question for the agent? No, in that case, I'll ask for questions or comments from anyone in the audience. I do have a couple of names that have said they wanted to speak. Steve Blanchard. Please come to the mic. State your name for the record, and you have 5 minutes as a maximum.
I'm Steve Blanchard. Mr. Chair, Mayor Ferguson, members of Prince Edward County Council, thank you for allowing me to speak on this issue tonight. My wife and I have been residents of Cherry Valley for 26 years. I've been a family and emergency medicine doctor in Prince Edward County for 35 years. I'd like to begin by welcoming the owners of Lakecroft to the neighborhood. Our community welcomes new neighbors. A good neighbor enhances the neighborhood. A good neighbor does not disrupt the peace and quiet of the neighborhood and those living near to them, or detract from their enjoyment of the property. Lakecroft is located in the middle of Cherry Valley, which, as you know, is a largely residential village. There are a few businesses, which is great to see, but these are quiet. I might note that the trailer park, the Marklands Trailer Park, which has been present for many decades until the last 2 years, was dead quiet. didn't hear a peep out of them. The fact that Lakecroft is on the water actually allows the noise from the site to carry very far. We're happy to see a zoning change that would allow Lakecroft to legally continue with their glamping and accommodation rental business and the motel and such like. We strongly feel, however, that giving the okay for an event venue to operate in the middle of an almost entirely residential village is completely inappropriate. As you may be aware, despite the lack of the correct zoning for an event venue, they've been hosting wedding parties with loud amplified music into the night for the past several summers. I understand there have been a number of noise complaints, and quite a few of our neighbors expressed grave concern. The music is loud enough that even with our windows closed and the air conditioning turned on, you can still hear the loud thumping bass. Even if closing the windows and turning on the AC did block the noise, the community should absolutely not be put in the position of being forced to do this on a regular basis to not be disturbed. Concerningly, this establishment regularly blows by the 11 p.m. noise cutoff specified in our bylaws, and this was without the required zoning for the event venue. I shudder to think how late the party music might in fact go if the required zoning was in fact given. I would have expected a business that was planning to apply for a zoning change would have been on its best behavior. My wife, Dr. Ann Naskville, was the lead physician with the county's highly successful physician recruiting program. One of Prince Edward County's biggest advantages over our many competitors for physician recruits is that its towns and villages are very livable communities. Allowing a tourism operator in one of our villages to add a facet to the business that produces loud music late into the night on a regular basis is not compatible with a reputation for having livable communities. I frequently do the Saturday or Sunday day shift in our hospital's emergency department. I need to be up early in the morning and well rested to be ready for the shift as the emergency doctor of the day. Loud party music is certainly not conducive to getting a good night's sleep. To conclude, I strongly encourage you, for the peace and quiet of Cherry Valley, and for the reasons I've stated, not to allow the applicant to host parties with amplified music in Cherry Valley. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Any member of the committee have questions for Dr. Blanchard? Councilor Grosso.
Dr. Blanchard, thank you. Is there any loud noise that you may be hearing from the hayloft at all, from where you're living now?
Not a thing, no, not at all.
No.
Never
Okay.
have. They've been there for a long time.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, in that case, we also have a Kathleen White who wanted to appear. You should get on the record of saying that, Kathleen.
Yeah, totally. It's just, I live right across from the wetlands, and last summer was terrible. And if there's 16 weekends that you have to sit out there on a Friday, Saturday night, and each one of them has music banging, it's not conducive to a neighborhood. And I think the other thing too is a lot of what I was looking at was the tent. And if it moves into a building, the problem is there's no parking for any of this either. Like the numbers I looked at were 65 people and 35 into this cafeteria that were going to be these 2 event spaces. So now it's going to be a big building. When is that going to be built if it gets approved based on this temporary tent thing? Because I can't do another summer of hearing noise. And I can't even imagine that a building, they're going to open the doors anyway, so it's going to be the same thing. It's really not a place for an event venue. The camping, the glamping, like all of that's fine. And to your point, I never knew there was a trailer park there. I've been there for 7 years. I never knew there was anything back there. So it's, and last summer was just like, wow, what's going on? And the lights and there's a lot of changes that sort of happened, and it's not, I don't think we were really, we weren't told it was going to happen. And they've already gone forward and created some of these things. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Kathleen White.
Okay, thank you. Just stay there in case there's any questions. Any question from the committee? No. Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to speak to this item? If not, I'll give the agent an opportunity to respond to the questions if she wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly to respond, I think the previous iteration of the plans, as you noted, did include just the tent as the event venue, but we really feel like this iteration of the plans will help to resolve a lot of the concerns surrounding noise by introducing this new purpose-built building. It will ensure that any amplified music is positioned within the building, which will, of course, significantly reduce any potential noise impacts of the proposed use. In terms of parking, there will be additional parking proposed that was not addressed in the initial application. So there will be sufficient parking exceeding the bylaw requirements for this type of use, and all other uses being factored into that as well. So there actually will be a total of approximately 100 parking spaces. As noted, any spaces that are in excess of the zoning bylaw are proposed to be naturalized, and that is to help sort of offset and reduce impervious surfaces on the property. And so I think that was sort of capturing the majority of what I wanted to say, but those plans will be submitted as part of the second submission package back to the county, and I assume made publicly available. So they'll be available for viewing, and we are happy to address comments once those have been reviewed as well.
Okay, thank you. This brings us to questions from the committee. Councillor Branderhorst.
Hi. I was just waiting for comments from the audience to be done before I started asking my questions, and also then I'll lean into staff after. This is not the first time I've heard about the sound being a problem. It's been a problem for the last 2 years, from my understanding, from the amount of phone calls I've received and emails. And I'm just curious on, would the applicants be fine with no events? Everything else proposed as goes, cafe, motel, but no events.
I think through the chair, I can't speak on behalf of the applicants, but their intention is to proceed with the event venue use, ensuring that through zoning tools and through the zoning bylaw draft, they can sort of hopefully address some of the comments that have been received by the community, in addition to and further to what has been provided with the new proposed building specific for the event venue.
So I have a different recommendation of no events, would be my personal recommendation for the community. And that will be my recommendation to staff tonight, because kind of what I think fits a hamlet a little bit better. And my other question is, you said small commercial enterprises can happen on in hamlets. I've been trying to find that information. I see B&Bs are allowed in the zoning of hamlets, but I can't see small commercial uses in our hamlet zoning of our comprehensive zoning bylaw.
I would have, through the chair, I would have to find the specific section. I do have the planning rationale that was submitted.
Was it in the comprehensive zoning bylaw, or was it in a secondary plan section?
This was pulled from the the official plan that is in the publicly available planning justification report that was submitted on behalf of the application. But this is also why we are introducing a site-specific special designation, retaining the hamlet designation, but adding additional permitted uses to ensure that everything's appropriately captured in the official plan.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Councillor Maynard?
Thank you. So,
I'm sorry, no time is up for that.
so you have an event building. So is the intention then to host the events inside the building, and then entirely inside the building? Because it looks like the building has like open doors, right, where people would be inside and outside. So you're saying that all the attendees for these events would be inside the building, other than when they were, going to their car?
The intention is to, yes, transfer what would have been previously fully hosted in the shelter tent to transfer that into the building. So that would include the dinner and the reception and any potential dancing, anything like that would be situated within the building. The only things that would be exterior to the building potentially would be on a case-by-case basis. It would be for perhaps the ceremony. So that could potentially be on the front lawn, and then everything, dinner and the remaining event sequence would be held within the building.
Okay, sorry, I thought when you said the capacity of the building earlier that it was less than that 100, but I may have.
100 is the intended maximum number of guests for the venue use, yes.
Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if you can answer this, but I'll ask it. What's the number of events you're going to have, or is projected to have yearly? So are we talking, and I know it's hard to say, but is there a number that they're looking to have, the number of events?
Through the chair, I don't have the specific number of events. I'm not sure if the owners want to speak to that, but I think the intention would be to start off at least or only have events held on weekends. And of course, it would be on an as-needed basis and on an as-demand basis. But I don't have the specific number of events. I can have a further discussion with the owners and respond to that question through a response package to the county if that's desirable, of course.
Councillor Pennell.
It just kind of rang to me. Starting out with venues basically on the weekends, that's a starting point. But if you're running a business, I would imagine you'd be looking at every day you could get during the summer months. Would you not?
Through the chair, I may have misspoke, but my understanding through conversations with the clients is that they only want to operate events on the weekends. That is their preference for moving forward.
Okay, thanks.
Unless we build it in, yeah. Any other questions from the committee? No, in that case, I will need a motion, mover and seconder to receive the oral submissions for information. Sorry, Councillor Pennell, was there something else?
Asked later on, and because of the close proximity to environmental sensitive areas, I wanted to find out if there was any extra study involved in asking an environmental study of the property itself.
That's a process question. Angela, do you have a response to that?
Yes, there was an EIS submitted, or an environmental impact study submitted with the application.
And that's available for viewing on the planning portal?
Yes, it's all on the portal.
Thank you. Anybody else? So again, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the oral submissions on this application. Councillor Branderhorst, Councillor St. Jean.
Branderhorst St. Jean motion that the oral comments on file number OPA-02-24 and Z12-24 Blanding Inc. O/A Lakecroft be received.
All those in favor? Thank you. So I will now be able to declare that this statutory public meeting has concluded at 6:55 p.m. And that will bring us to item 5.4, which is a draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and rezoning file 13T22503, OPA 0322, and Z4322, Fernbridge Investments Limited and Long Arrow Investments Limited, aka County Road 28 subdivision, south of 579 County Road 28 in Ward 4, Ameliasburg. Does the planner, applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak? And we have Mr. Leger from RFA to present to us. You have 10 minutes, Sean.
Oh, perfect. Down is forward. Okay, perfect. Good evening. My name is Sean Leger, Vice President and Senior Planner with RFA Planning Consultant. I'm the agent for these applications. Here with me tonight is the project engineer, Matt McIntosh from the Greer-Galloway Group. I was retained by the owner back in 2018 to undertake planning approvals for plan and subdivision for the subject property, now known as the County Road 28 subdivision project. Pre-consultation commenced for the project in November of 2019. It was confirmed at that time that the County Road 28 subdivision project also required official plan amendment and rezoning approvals. In my presentation this evening, I will review the site context, work completed, details of the proposed development, findings of the required technical studies, the planning policy framework, and the applications themselves for your consideration this evening. For those of you not familiar with the site, it's located just south of the intersection of Highway 62 and County Road 28 in the village of Rossmore. Its official plan land use designation is Urban Center and Environmental Protection Area. More specifically, it is designated Neighborhood Development Area and Environmental Protection Area in the Rossmore Urban Center Secondary Plan. It is currently within the Hamlet Residential Holding Zone and Environmental Protection Provincially Significant Wetland EPW Zone. Uses surrounding the site are rural residential within the HR zone and vacant rural industrial within the MR zone. To the north, the Seguin Creek Marsh is located to the south. Rural residential or HR zone is located to the east, and vacant rural industrial MR zone is to the west. The site's area is 4.9 hectares or 12 acres with slight I jumped ahead there, with a lot frontage of 21.6 meters or 70.9 feet on the west side of County Road 28. As mentioned previously, we commenced pre-consultation with county staff in 2019. Since then, the owner has been working diligently to complete all required technical supporting studies and planning approvals in order to construct residential housing on the subject property. From June of 2020 to April 2024, the following work has been completed. We have preliminary geotechnical and servicing evaluation, preliminary stormwater management, traffic impact, site visits were conducted, a neighborhood development area preliminary stormwater brief was also prepared, along with environmental impact study, planning justification report, archaeological assessments, and of course the preparation of a draft plan of subdivision. A draft plan of subdivision application, along with official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications, were filed and deemed complete in October of 2022. First technical review comments were received in July of 2023. From there, a second submission was filed in April of 2024, which consisted of the archaeological clearance and a revised draft plan, along with a revised environmental impact study. Second technical review comments were received in June of 2024, and we are currently finalizing our response to those comments. The noted plans and reports have been prepared in support of the County Road 28 subdivision project, which will consist of 11 Hamlet residential lots, a new 20-meter wide public road, a stormwater drainage and environmental protection block. 2 easements for temporary turning circles are proposed, each configured to impact only one side of the road as requested by staff. The plan accommodates a future road connection to the west to lands that are also within the Rossmore Urban Center area. The plan also accommodates land exchange blocks in order to facilitate site triangles at the proposed intersection with County Road 28. Lastly, the Seguin Creek Marsh and most current flood elevation which was updated in 2019, have been surveyed, and it has been confirmed that there is sufficient building envelopes outside the required 30-meter setback from those natural and hazard features. Regarding stormwater management, quantity control is not a concern due to the proximity of the Seguin Creek Marsh and the Bay of Quinte. And there will be no runoff from external lands post-development, as cutoff swales are proposed along the northern border of the site. With respect to quality treatment and minor system flows, runoff is proposed to sheet flow from the roadside dishes from all north lots and the front 50 meters of the south lots, as seen on this slide in dark blue. Runoff will then be conveyed along the road to a trapezoidal outlet swale, seen here in light blue on the easterly extent of the site to the Seguin Creek Marsh and the Bay of Quinte. Enhanced Level 1 treatment is required in accordance with the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, or the MECP, and an emergency overland flow route has been designed along the road surface to convey 100-year storm events. Lastly, erosion and settlement control is proposed during construction to consist of mud mats of all ingress and egress roads, light-duty fencing, and revegetating exposed earth within 30 days of disturbance. On a similar note, a geotechnical and servicing evaluation has been conducted in support of the proposed development and is as follows. Municipal water and individual on-site sewage servicing is proposed. A review of the MECP well records was completed, which found no well interference from on-site sewage systems is anticipated due to a parallel groundwater flow direction. From the 9 test pits installed, bedrock was found to be generally shallow with sandy silt loam surface soils. With this, tertiary treatment technology has been recommended to address potential nitrate loading impacts. With respect to the fire flow review that was completed, sufficient flow and pressure has been confirmed. With respect to potential traffic impacts from the proposed development, the existing three-way intersection adjacent to the site is operating at an acceptable level of service, or LOS. Trip estimates that have been completed are based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, which found 9 additional peak hour vehicle trips entering the site and 5 vehicle trips exiting. With respect to the proposed new intersection, it is expected to operate at an acceptable level of service and well under capacity beyond the statutory 10-year horizon review. On these basis, no turning lanes or tapers are recommended as a result of the proposed development. Lastly, it has been concluded that realignment of the Massasauga Road approach is unlikely and unnecessary due to low volumes estimated from the proposed development. To address potential intersection alignment concerns, a turning circle easement is proposed to accommodate potential future access reversal from County Road 28 to Highway 62 through the neighborhood development area to the west and north. This would be on the basis of the policy at the time of the future build-out of the remainder of the neighborhood development area surrounding the site that and would maintain an emergency access connection. With respect to potential environmental impacts from the proposed development, surveys were completed according to applicable federal, provincial, and municipal legislation, regulations, and policies, which consisted of 4 field investigations in 2020 and delineation of the current wetland limit. No butternut trees were found on site, and critical habitat for aquatic species at risk has not been identified. Based on the site-specific surveys, a 30-meter setback is recommended from the Seguin Creek Marsh provincially significant wetland and the 100-year Bay of Quinte flood elevation. Native tree and shrub plantings are also recommended along the outer limit of the 30-meter wetland setback to enhance buffering. No vegetation clearing is recommended between May 15th and August 15th during the turtle nesting season. And lastly, tree preservation and enhancement is recommended within 5 meters of the north and west property lines, along with consultation with the MECP for endangered and threatened species in the area. On these bases, no negative impacts on natural features or their ecological functions are anticipated as a result of the proposed development. With respect to archaeology, stage 1 and 2 assessments have been completed. Regarding the stage 1 assessment, a stage 2 assessment was recommended based on evidence of archaeological potential and a review of historical records and 19th century mapping, along with the presence of a late woodland archaeological site within 1 kilometer of the study area. A stage 2 assessment was then completed using 5-meter intervals, test pit intervals survey for the entire property. This confirmed that the property is free of archaeological material. On this basis, no further archaeological work is recommended. Since those surveys were undertaken, the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism completed the review and confirmed the stage 1 and 2 assessments are consistent with standards and guidelines for consultant archaeologists, and the reports have been entered into the Ontario Public Register of Archaeological Reports. This represents clearance.
You have 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. Bear with me here. This represents clearance of archaeological concerns. I will skip policy review and go to the applications. Sorry, I'll just skip to my conclusion, because that basically,
Good idea.
since I only have 30 seconds, I will jump to my conclusion.
This is all in the planning portal, so.
It's all in my planning report. That is absolutely true, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So in summary, the proposed development is considered an orderly progression of comprehensive in-depth growth within an urban settlement area, is a vacant lot residential intensification that will support the village core, that will extend the surrounding village fabric and blend with the existing single detached built form surrounding the site. The proposed development will provide a safe transportation system, public street, and access to the shoreline. Adequate servicing capacity provided by the Rossmore Fenwick Gardens water distribution system has been confirmed, along with sufficient building envelopes outside of the recommended 30-meter Second Creek Marsh and Bay of Quinte flood elevation. The proposed development is supported by technical reports prepared by qualified professionals. And lastly, it's important to note that the proposed development will support the building of more homes faster, which is a matter of provincial and federal interest. Thank you. Myself and the project engineer are here to help answer any questions you might have, especially due to my shortened presentation.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Leger? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you. The one great concern to me is a temporary turnaround. I realize there's other properties that's possible, could be redeveloped or developed in the future. But we've got to protect the people that are there and the municipality, and I personally would not support it without making the turnaround for when we're plowing roads permanent. Then if you want changes in that subdivision, looking at that, what would your feeling be on something?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in this particular situation, the property is within the urban serviced area of Rossmore, and so we are providing a future connection to the west, which is, I could pull up our neighborhood concept plan. It's very typical for a temporary circle to be constructed until the road proceeds through.
Excuse me, we don't know, like, if the road is going to proceed or not. Look at the way the country's going right now. I want to protect us now, not down the road 25, 30 years.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, a permanent road will be constructed with the option to extend the road further to the west once those lands develop. My client does not own that property to the west and north, and so we are just simply obligated, because it's within an urban area, to provide future connection. But a permanent road will be constructed from County Road 28.
I've got a couple more follow-ups.
I'll go to Councillor Maynard first and then come back to you, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Well thought out. So just for clarification, the turnaround will remain there until the point where there is future connections to other properties. So this is not really temporary in that it's going away until there is actually a road that will go to that will connect to other developable lands.
There is no turnaround.
So you're talking, sorry, I see on the plan a turnaround at the end of between block 4 and 5. correct? Is that, and that will stay, correct?
Sean?
So through you, Mr. Chair, if I can pull up the draft plan slide, that would be very helpful, I think. It's part of the presentation. It's probably slide 5 or 4 or 5. Let's flip to that. Actually, it's probably easier to see on this slide because it's colored. So through preparation of the plan, we had originally provided a block. And through the technical review process, it was actually staff directed to change that to an easement format. And this, I understand, was to provide ease for when the road does go through, that it would provide ease for the rehabilitation of that turnaround and divestiture of that, because the landowner would technically own that. But the easement provides the right-of-way to turning circles. So there's actually 2. So there would be one provided at the far west of the property. So you can see there's a sort of a curved line there, center west or center left. So that would be the primary turning circle that would be permanently constructed. Not until the larger neighborhood development area would be constructed and built would there be the potential need for addressing the alignment of the new Street A intersection with Massasauga Road. In the event that staff decide that it's most appropriate to reverse the traffic flow to Highway 62, so we've provided 2 turning easements. So the second one is actually center right. That would be the secondary turning circle. So that would be in the event that staff decide that it's appropriate to reverse the traffic flow to address the alignment issue with Massasauga Road. Currently, there's no issue. As proposed, there's no issue. It only becomes an issue, we understand, once the larger neighborhood development area develops, because there's such a low traffic volume and traffic flows in and out of the site. I do have the project engineer here that can potentially add some additional value to that conversation, but there will be a permanent road constructed, a permanent turnaround constructed, and that's to the west, that's on the west side. That would only be removed unless the larger neighborhood development area develops. Otherwise, it would just stay. And there's a very good example of this in the Watermark on the Bay subdivision, which is just to the north. That's exactly how it was developed. And they actually provide an emergency access as well nearby. So this is a situation we've encountered before in developing in this area, and we have a solution to this issue.
So simply stated, they'll be there.
It will be there permanently unless the lands to the west and north develop.
15 years, whatever it takes. Yep.
That's correct.
I got Councillor Branderhorst, and then I'll go back to Councillor Pennell.
Hi, thank you, Chair. This file, or this property specifically, has it not come up to council within our term already? I've been trying to find the information on it, or has it not? Okay, I'm getting shakes from around the horseshoe. Was it land near it? Because, oh, okay, it was. Okay, so the land already near it is getting developed. That helps. Even though you didn't answer my question, but my colleagues around the table answered the question. It helps if it's a beside land that is being developed and not just the constant flipping of properties after we give an approval and one comes in that's similar to it, that wants things tweaked. It's just something that we like to keep an eye on. So sorry I didn't give you a chance to chat or talk about it, but
good clarification. Good clarification.
Still helpful.
Councillor Pennell and then Councillor Nutman.
Yeah, once again, with that picture, I may be missing something, because with the circle, is that going the other way? 2. A turnaround for snowplows can't be off to one side. They got to be able to go in, swing around, and by the looks of that drawing, am I right or wrong?
Perhaps staff would like to answer. Some of our documents are showing a full circle in the
But that
report.
does,
Through you, Mr. Chair. Indeed, this is the proposed way that the applicant wants to move forward with a temporary turning circle. This is standard to have sort of the P design. It allows for the truck going, I guess, westward to loop down and get into that circular area to turn around to go back out the other way. That ends up as an easement for the municipality for as long as we need it. And then when the road gets pushed through, we remove the easement and the land goes back to the property owner.
Thank you. Follow up?
yeah, I've got a couple more things. Once again, I think if you talk to the snowplow operator, they need a spot, like we keep adding subdivisions and that. Let's plan it that they can plow the roads properly. That way they can. The other thing I wanted to ask was, to the south in the swamp area, along 28, that is flooded several times in the last 50 years. And if we get the subdivision going there with salt for snow and water and that, is there anything taken into consideration of that? Plus, we're gonna have all the water running along the road now. We put a culvert in, there's possible for more. So I'm asking, what is the plan to accommodate that we're not gonna flood that road out down below, which has in the past?
Sean?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this road would be, I presume you're referring to the, I guess I would call it a causeway across the wetland. Yes, and so this development is north of that, outside of that area. But I can have the project engineer come and speak to any specifics to the road design and how the stormwater management was handled through the property. I did a very quick overview before I got the timing reminder, but will all be engineered properly.
You do realize all the land there is sloping towards the marshland.
Yeah, that was pointed out, and the 100-year flood line is being respected in these drawings, as far as I can see. Councillor Nyman?
No, I'm good, thanks.
You good? Councillor St. Jean?
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I recognize that this is just, it's not, this is one part of a future development. The rest of it is not owned by the proponent. You stated that right off the bat. But it does appear that RFA is the planning consultant for the entire project, because your records, or your picture shows the rest of the development, all the multiple phases that are not owned by the current applicant. Is that true? Am I reading the page correctly? That it's all your work?
So through you, Mr. Chair, preparation of the neighborhood concept plan was a requirement of the official plan amendment that we filed for my client's property. So we didn't have a choice in preparing this plan. It was required of us. So it's basically a concept that we were required to do for the application. And it's not on land that my client owned, and this actually did come up in conversation many times from our perspective. So we did a concept. We did some preliminary work as required by the Rossmore secondary plan, and that's as far as it is. So my client does not own the lands, the other lands on this plan, nor does he plan to develop them. It's just something we were required to do, and that's as far as it goes.
Okay, and I do have one more, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So with regards to the neighborhood concept plan, I see that I need to add a statement ahead of my question, though. So when I see something like this, I get concerned because we saw something very similar along Talbot Street here in Picton where it was piecemeal development. And a lot of those pieces did not fit neatly together. Whether it was drainage, whether it was property swales across elevations between each development. So I think I'm going to look forward to seeing more later, but I think yourself and any future developers on those lands, I think you need to ensure that all of it works well together. Because the last thing I think I want to see happening in Rossmore is what happened on Talbot Street in Picton, where these developments were not thought of as one cohesive unit, because they will be eventually. Building here, and here, and here, putting a jigsaw puzzle together without thinking about all of the future impacts, and some of them Councillor Pennell has raised. But anyways, so with that all in mind, and the potential for future development there beyond what's being proposed, I do have to ask because I'm seeing large lots. I'm potentially, I guess we're seeing $900,000 homes, because that's what was in the concept plan, as proof of the value or return to the municipality and tax base. So I get a little concerned when I see a bloated number like 900. Are these $2 million houses that are assessed at 900? Because that's kind of the way the system works. So now I've lost my train of thought. There's too much going on in my brain because I'm seeing so much that potentially could be happening here. Has your client considered smaller lots, smaller homes at a more affordable and attainable value, particularly in an area like Rossmore that is so close to regional employment opportunities for our county residents?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think I have a question to answer. So that report was done a number of years ago, so I should probably preface that. So, I mean, the landscape, the real estate landscape has changed since those numbers were prepared. I sort of gave you the general timeline, so I believe we filed originally in 2021 and 2022. So here we are, 4 years later. The landscape has changed a fair bit, I think. So those values may vary. In terms of the lot size, that's not actually something that we can determine as the applicant. It's something that's actually the zoning bylaw dictated the size of the lots. They are hamlet residential lots. They have to be this big in order to, because of the services that are there in Rossmore, there's only water. And so the lots do have to be larger to accommodate septic systems and provide for the proper and adequate separation of those septic systems. And so that's the sizing of the lot question. I think that's the gist of the questions. I think there was two main questions, and forgive me if I missed something. Please remind me, and I will do my best to answer.
I think you've pretty much covered it, Sean, other than to say, and I'm just going to throw it out there to whoever the future developer is for the rest of the land there. Whether I'm at this table or not, I'm sure somebody is going to be asking that question. What about a slightly higher density that actually works on partial services? I think that's something that particularly in the north end of the county needs to be highly considered. And anyways, that's just my final statement.
I think the manager of planning, Mr. Michaud, might like to speak about this neighborhood concept plan, which is still up on the screen.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. We're not typically to speak at the statutory meeting, but just to clarify the need for the neighborhood concept plan. It was an official plan requirement under the Rossmore secondary plan. We needed these lands to be looked at in a cohesive manner. So RFA and the applicant went forward. I think they tried to contact that property owner a number of times to become part of the process. My understanding is they didn't come to the table, so RFA and the applicant developed this particular plan that you see in front of you. Having it is valuable because it gives us the ability at a later date when the property owner comes forward with a plan of subdivision, we could say, well, this is what's already been done. We think this works fairly well. In speaking to Councillor St. Jean's idea of more density, the cul-de-sac at the north end there, that could be a block on a plan of subdivision. You could see some townhouses at that point in time, or some stacked townhouses with a larger system of some sort. So there is an ability to get some density on this site, respective of what we see here today.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. Councillor Brandhorst.
Do you know if the applicants would be interested in and/or at this point, I guess this is also to you, in specifically with managing water and septic, with potential of adding in to add in density, as Councillor St. Jean put it, with an in-law suite kind of attached, or a rental, or a above the garage rental, or something along those lines that might work better with the larger property in the community, but also add that density and also mortgage help. I don't know if that's thought about, or you mentioned it and I missed it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to pull up the zoning chart, I do believe that 2 dwelling units are permitted within the Hamlet residential zone. So that's already built into, not that, at the time, there it is. Yep, I was correct. So 2 dwelling units are currently permitted within the Hamlet residential zone. The site is actually already zoned Hamlet residential. It does have a holding symbol on it, which essentially requires a comprehensive planning approval to occur, like a plan of subdivision, at which we have filed. So there would absolutely be potential for that. They use the term gentle density. And so there would be already built into the zone potential for that. We're not requesting to reduce that requirement, so it would remain the 2 units. And so whoever does develop, once they construct the homes, they would build that into their plans, or it could be potential to be added later, that they would have to, service it appropriately. In that case, just further to that, I know the secondary plan does discuss the potential for what's called lot splitting. It's a concept for Rossmore in the event that sewage services, municipal sewage services, do end up proceeding through the hamlet, or through the village. So that concept is discussed in the secondary plan. So it has been contemplated. Not that we can sort of address that at this time, but these kinds of things partially are built into the zone already and are discussed in secondary plans. So there would be, that's a future discussion for sure, but there is something built in already with the 2 units.
Councillor Pennell, do you have another question for the applicant?
Promise this is the last. That proposed subdivision alongside of it, if we start bringing all that traffic out onto 28, we're talking a narrow spot getting onto 28. I don't know whether we'd ever want that traffic all coming out to that road, or the possibility of it coming out. And the other thing, I wish you could explain to me, the additional developer hasn't offered to work. How did we get all the plans for what the subdivision would look like? Certainly you wouldn't be doing it for them at no cost. So where did that come from?
Councillor Pennell, I think that was explained by the manager of planning and by Mr. Legier that this is a requirement of the secondary plan to develop a concept. So that's what's been done, even in the absence of the other landowners being involved. So it's only a concept at this stage.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for Mr. Legier? Councillor Guasso.
Thank you. So part of that plan, does that include a traffic study?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the only requirement to consider our applications complete was actually a stormwater management review. So we did actually prepare that review, as well as for our own lands that my client owns and is planning to develop and requesting those approvals. But an additional stormwater management review was undertaken for the larger neighborhood development area as well. That was the only requirement from that. And I do have the project engineer here. He can answer any traffic, it's actually a specialty. So he can actually answer any traffic questions, provide further information than what I've already provided.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, Mr. Legere, I'll now ask if there are folks in the audience who wish to speak to this item. You'll have 5 minutes each. Please come to the microphone. I do have Paul Roach listed. We'll start with Mr. Roach, and then we'll move on to others.
Thank you. Paul Roach. I live at 579 County Road. My wife and our family have been there 10 years. The proposed development, it's going right behind our property. The street A on your thing it's a traffic nightmare. That's all I'm going to say. And there is no turnaround spot. That's a future development thing. Right now, the plows go by our house, they back up, and then they go into Masssaga Road and Kona Road 28. To put another street 30, 20 meters away is a nightmare in my estimation. We already see people coming down County Road 28 and coming off Massasauga where they don't fully stop, and we've witnessed several almost accidents and night or daily, like where it's a slowdown. There's a lot of bicyclers that go through on County Road 28. There's also a creek that runs through our property and feeds down into the marsh. What are the plans for that if they build a road there? This Street A, to me, is just, it's a nightmare waiting to happen. You have something that in the Cold Creek subdivision where they built too close to the property owner. Please look at that one. You also have over in Rednersville Road and the Bay Breeze subdivision where that hasn't been fully developed. People have put money in and the subcontractors have not been paid. It's come to a halt. So before you bite off more, maybe look at what you got in the process. That's all I'm asking you. And also, it's environmentally protected wetlands. There was a reason it was put there. I don't think our climate's getting any better. I think there's a reason why they put it there. And I agree with you 100%. The drainage goes all the way down there. We've lived there 10 years. We've seen flooding. We've seen whatever. You're going to build up there. The water level goes with what the Bay of Quinte does, where that marsh is. So unless you're going to be able to control the Bay of Quinte and all the flows that go into it, that marsh is going to go up and down. And so are the people that are going to build there. They're going to get, sorry, but sewered into something that they're not going to be realized. And as far as the developers go, it's Arrow Investments, it's Arrowhead, but it's Arrow Investments, and it's Fernbridge. They're a huge corp. They got lots of deep pockets. But at the end of the day, are they ever going to fulfill their promises? I'm hearing a lot of proposed whatever. There was a big corporation, it was called Nortel. It owned a lot of the TSX or would control it. Where are they today? So just be careful on these false promises. Do your homework, please. And I see that thing with Bay of Quinte, the Mohawks. Have they been advised of this, that we're going to change protected lands? Please just do your homework. And this is going to be a safety nightmare. I'm going to tell you right now, because the way people come down 28 and Masssaga Road coming off, you're going to put another, well, it won't be that heavy of traffic. Okay, you got to develop it. You got to be contractors in there. It's going to be heavy traffic. I don't care if they're building 15 houses when they're going to go that way. Well, are they ever going to go that way? This is an ill-thought proposition that hasn't been thought out, and it's a lot of promises and stuff that all I'm saying is, in your respect, thank you for the opportunity, but please do your homework before you jump into something that you don't have all the questions answered. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Don't go away yet. We'll see if the committee has any questions for you. No, I see no questions, so thank you for your comments.
I've lived on the land for 10 years. I know where the water flow, I know where the traffic is. I can do a traffic study if you want.
And I can assure you that Indigenous consultation has been done as per our policy, so at least that element is done. Who's next up then? The young lady at the back had her hand up. Just give your name for the record and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Dee Hazel and I live in Consicon. I'm here to address the application for subdivision. This application is being submitted to build houses that we don't need and many of us don't want. Yes, Ontario is short of housing, as is Prince Edward County, but not this kind of housing. Subdivisions do not house people efficiently. They take up too much land and too many resources. Subdivisions contribute major environmental problems such as land loss, habitat loss, and a reduction in biodiversity. Considering we are in a climate change emergency, we should be doing everything we can to mitigate our impact on our environment, not add to it. The land lost to this type of housing takes away our green spaces that help clean our air and water. It takes away habitat for the wild things that share this land with us. Subdivisions are just generally bad for the environment. They lead to increased driving, which in turn leads to vehicle emissions, and that contributes to air pollution and a negative effect on human health. Sprawl also wastes our time and money by making many of us car dependent. This type of housing costs us in higher taxes and fewer services. Worst of all, sprawl prevents us from building more economically and environmentally sustainable communities, communities which are better for both human health and the environment. We need to build up and not out. Before we take up any more green space and farmland with subdivisions and sprawl, we need to infill the existing land stock we have in our urban centers. We need to build smaller and more sustainable housing stock using less land and fewer resources. We need to discourage so much private space and encourage vibrant and usable public green space. We don't have to do the way it's been done before. We can be creative and innovative in how we house people. We just have to get on with it. There are many creative architects and engineers out there who are advocating for a change in the way we create homes. We need to change how we house people. Please rethink what type of housing we allow to be built in Prince Edward County. And if you've not read some of the studies and papers by the Environmental Defence Canada, I suggest you do. They have some very informative, creative, and well-researched papers on how to live better in this world without destroying it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Does the committee have any questions? I'm not seeing any, so thank you for your comments. Anyone else in the audience have any comments to make on this item? Oh. Duarte Silva.
Hello.
Welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'll be brief because I think some of those issues were answered during the presentation and some of the questions from council. I'm Duarte Silva. I'm a resident at 465 County Road 28 with my partner Sarah, and we are directly south of this proposed subdivision. In fact, we look down on it because as you head north, you go down through the culvert, the causeway, towards division and the subdivision and 262. So our personal concerns are obviously the view that would be impacted from our house and the scale of lighting. Now, I've been before you to talk about the importance of housing, attainable and affordable housing. This appears to not be one of those. In fact, the subdivision just north of that, the watermark by the bay, has 44 lots. And as Councillor St. Jean mentioned, that $900,000 price is old because those units, those houses are currently selling for $1.8 million. In addition to that, obviously, the residents of County Road 28, we all back onto that marsh. And in 2012, there was a marsh fire with flames that were 50 feet high that required calls from multiple fire stations to put it out. There was also marsh on Big Island Road as well that also happened. It's a highly, highly sensitive area. I'll also mention that in terms of the actual roadway, there are no sidewalks on County Road 28. So if you're trying to get anywhere along the road, you are on the road. There's no shoulder in most places except at the causeways. And those causeways have also flooded several times, as previously mentioned. Most recently in 2014 and 2017, where the streets were closed because of flooding. So it's a concern as well. You know, I know that there's been studies done around the plant life, the animal life, that is very sensitive around there as well. So those are just the brief concerns. I'm glad to see that they've, you know, taken in a channel to handle another 100-year flood. We'll likely have one again, but that is my concern for this division. I'm happy to also see that it's not 82 units or lots, and that it is 11. But also, as Councillor St. Jean mentioned, that there is that potential for creep, where it's piecemeal together and addition to addition to addition is added. I'm certainly all for housing in the county. We know we need it to attract a workforce. We know we need to make it more affordable for people to come and live and work in the county. But the density has to be right, the location has to be right, and we have to certainly consider what kind of housing we are offering and building in a rural area like Rossmore. Thank you.
Thank you, Duarte. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. De Silva? Councillor Brainy.
Thank you, Chair Hirsch. Not really a question. I just want to thank the folks that have come forward, not on this file, but all the files tonight. I think it's a process you always gain some really good practical knowledge from people that actually live around these projects. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the audience who wants to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, I can give Mr. Leger, I can give you an opportunity to respond if you wish to some of the comments you heard, briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to leave the committee with a couple of points. This property is within the urban serviced area of Rossmore. There's municipal water that goes across the property frontage that we connect to. The provincial planning statement indicates this kind of project shall be the focus of growth within urban serviced areas. It also permits the minor rounding out of existing development on partial services, so this is permitted. I also want to leave the committee with that this particular site is north of the causeway at an elevation above the causeway. So there's no anticipated flooding of this property. Stormwater will be directed to the perimeter swale with the proper outlet and be properly engineered. So I just want to leave the committee with some of these comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, does the committee have any additional questions for anybody, for Mr. Leger or for staff? Seeing none, then I guess I will just need a motion, a mover and seconder to receive the oral submissions for information. Councillor Maynard and Councillor Pennell.
The oral submissions pertaining to planning application number B10421, B10521, and Z8321 be received for information.
All in favor? Thank you. So in that case, I will declare that the statutory public meeting on this matter is now concluded at 7:45 p.m. And I'll need a motion then that the statute from a mover and seconder that the statutory public meetings held on March 5th, 2025 adjourn at 7:46. Councillor Branderhorst, Councillor Prinzen, all in favor? Good, and we're done with section 5. So this brings us to item 6, comments from the audience. We have a number registered. Madam Clerk, do we have people online or in the house or both?
Through to the chair, we have Amy Bodman. She's coming through virtually.
I have to turn off my YouTube.
Can you hear us, Amy?
Yeah, I have to turn off my YouTube. Let me figure out how to do that.
Thank you.
521 and Z8321 be received for information.
Okay, and I'd like to share my screen, if I may, please. Is that okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Madam Clerk, she wants to do a
Share my screen?
Yes, that's okay, Amy.
Okay, I have to figure out how to do it. Here we go.
And just a reminder, Amy, you have 3 minutes for these comments.
Hey, can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm ready to begin. I'm Amy Bodman, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Prince Edward County Field Naturalists on item 7.1. Campfire Circle's site plan shows a substantial amount of development in 2 significant woodlands, a visitor's residence, camper residences, camping tent pads, a cabin, portions of the lodge, an elevated boardwalk, and a paved road system. Not mentioned in the EIS or on the site plan map is a trenching required through these woodlands for utilities, including hydro and plumbing. None of this development is permitted in our official plan. Policy 3.1.47 states that development shall not be permitted in significant woodlands identified through criteria in the MNRF's Natural Heritage Reference Manual. The applicant's EIS confirms that the MNRF's significant woodland criteria was applied to the 2 woodlands and significance was determined for both. We respectfully ask that you deny Campfire Circle's request to rezone this property until all of the proposed development is removed from the 2 significant woodlands. Natural core areas, NCAs, are identified in our official plan as the areas most important to protect for the ongoing survival of our precious natural heritage. Through a recent decision made by 1 vote on council, all of our NCAs are now open to tourist commercial development and at great risk of being destroyed. When you, Campfire Circle, decided to take a chance on developing in a natural core area in 2022 when you bought the property, knowing that NCA shoreland designations could well be removed, you probably never imagined that yours would become the precedent-setting development that could threaten the county's entire natural heritage system. Every interested developer will be looking at what the Planning Committee decides tonight to see what they can potentially get away with within NCAs. I refuse to believe our council wants to put our natural heritage system at risk. You make a living off our lands and waters. You garden, you plant trees. I believe you want your children and grandchildren to grow up being able to hear frogs, catch fish, sea turtles, snakes, rare birds, and woodland flowers in Prince Edward County. This nature and the biodiversity it supports helps fight the epidemic of anxiety and depression that so affects our youth today, an epidemic fueled in part by the specter of the loss of nature. It is up to you, Planning Committee, to protect the county's natural heritage for future generations. Please send this application back to staff and add in the official plan provisions that protect our natural heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Does the committee have any questions for Ms. Bodman? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay, so I guess I'll be put back into the waiting room. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I'll shut this down. You're putting me back there. Hopefully this all works. Thank you.
So next up is Cheryl Anderson, is that right?
Yeah. Cheryl, can you hear us?
Can you hear us, Cheryl?
I've got you. I'm just going to put my name up there.
Okay, we can hear you. So as you know, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm also going to share my screen. Okay. Thank you. It's Cheryl, and I'm speaking on behalf of the South Shore Joint Initiative.
Oh, there we go. Okay, good. Go ahead.
Okay, got it? The piece of land the Campfire Circle charity paid $4.5 million for in 2022 is in an area of natural and scientific interest. It is surrounded by provincially significant coastal wetland. It includes 2 significant woodlands and is home to at least 5 species at risk. For these reasons, it was designated a natural core area in the Prince Edward County 2021 official plan. From a natural heritage point of view, this piece of land is priceless. The official plan, the Provincial Planning Statement 2024, the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry Regulations, and regulations from the Ontario Endangered Species Act, describe allowable activities in the designated areas. Recovery plans are in place for the species at risk and must be considered. Of particular concern is the destruction of habitat that will take place during construction of this development. For example, the recovery strategy for bobolink suggests that egg laying can begin as early as mid-May and the last young fledge in early July. No alteration of habitat is recommended during this time. Similarly, turtles are most active in May and June, however, may be moving through their habitat until October. An ecology study of the road through their habitat is recommended before any alteration of the habitat is attempted. Pharmaceuticals in wastewater can harm human health and aquatic ecosystems. We recommend that the developer be required to install state-of-the-art wastewater treatments at the facility. In addition, we recommend that regular sampling and testing for pharmaceuticals of the wetland and West Lake water be required. In a meeting last week, Mr. McAllister confirmed that if the development is approved, construction is planned to begin in 2026 or 2027. I suggest, therefore, that a more careful approach and a more thorough study be completed before approval. There's no rush. I suspect that the Campfire Circle would prefer to know in advance whether their construction would adversely impact the species at risk in the wetlands and take appropriate measures to avoid being halted by a last-minute directive from MACP, for example. I think with the potential for a precedent-setting decision, Council would want to make sure that all the I's were dotted and the T's crossed. Please defer the decision on this proposal to allow time for additional studies and appropriate planning to ensure the safety of species at risk habitat and protection of important natural heritage. Finally, as a person who grew up in the 60s, my take on this development follows the Joni Mitchell ballad. With the approval, you'll be consenting to pave paradise and put up a parking lot on this special piece of land. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Does the committee have any questions for Cheryl? Seeing none, again, thank you very much. So, Madam Clerk, does that bring us to Douglas Dolan? Can you hear us, Mr. Dolan?
Doug, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. You can proceed.
Yeah, we're ready for you now. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, understood. I will be brief. I have just one concern, but I want to preface it by saying I'll express my appreciation to the committee and the town planning team for the change in the designation of the zoning to add private camp. I'm not going to waste my precious minutes to go on about what that signifies. You folks all know, and that was a concern from the last appearance I made, and it was heartening to see that that's added a limitation that I think is really helpful. But to my point, I just want to focus on road traffic and potential increases. The planning documents that I've seen posted to date don't appear to address increased traffic on the road. There's the references to reports by the traffic consultant, Ainley Group, that all refer to parking jurisdiction and that aspect of the site itself. I'm concerned about this, and I think some of my neighbors are as well, because we know it's a small road. You all know that. We already see significant increases during the summer months just on the basis of increased traffic out to Wesley Acres Park. And now that there could be feasibly increased traffic to this new facility, there's been assurances, and I'm sure they're well-intentioned and heartfelt, that, oh, it won't be that bad, and most of our campers come in buses and so on. But my concern is we don't have any kind of data point or benchmark against which to assess whether that turns out to be true a few years down the road. If a study has been done, let's see the data. If it hasn't, I think it would be good for the council, the committee, to make that a condition. Because if there is a perceived increase in traffic once the camp is up and running, it's not really helpful if it's just sort of anecdotal feelings and harking back a few years and saying, well, we all thought it was going to be okay, and it turns out not to be. Far better to have on the record, some baseline traffic rate on our road, some projected increase given the amount of people coming and going to the new facility. And then if it proves to be different than that, we all have a more concrete point of discussion, as opposed to just looking back to what might turn out to have been wishful thinking. So if the traffic study has been done, great, let's see it. If it hasn't been, my request of the committee and of the planning team would be, can we make this an expectation or condition for going forward, so that we have a much clearer data point on what road traffic is now and is projected to be versus how things turn out to be once the camp is running. So appreciate your listening to that one, and over to you if you have any questions.
Thank you very much for your comments. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Dolan? I'm not seeing any questions, so again, thank you for your comment.
Thanks so much, appreciate it.
That brings us to Evelyn Wilson. Becky?
Hi, I'm Evelyn Wilson, and I would have been at previous meetings. I didn't know it was in existence. As a resident of the county at the top, I don't always get county news. So it was after Sam posted something, and I wanted to come not to speak, as a county resident, but as a family that is used, and I will use the term Camp Hooch, Camp Trillium, because before they transformed together, that's what it was. I have been involved with this camp for over 15 years, and even previously to that, I supported it. I lost my twin brother when I was a kid, and there was nothing in existence. When my daughter was diagnosed in 2010, unfortunately, she didn't actually get to the camp because she lost her battle after 8 months, but she used the program in the hospital. My son went to the facility up in Parry Sound for Camp Timo for bereaved siblings, and we have been involved to help fundraise for this camp. So I want to express concern to some of the things I saw in previous things and then tonight. So the fact of the matter is, Eastern Ontario has no camp. We used to have Camp Trillium here. Due to flooding, due to everything that happened, COVID, things changed. So families in Eastern Ontario who already travel, are over 70 families in the Quinte area, have to travel to Ottawa or Toronto, sometimes Kingston for treatment. They're traveling a huge amount of time anyways. Then the concern about traffic, it is true, they use buses. We drove my son to Toronto, he hopped a bus to go to Parry Sound. They would do it from Chio, they'd hop a bus and bring them down. Buses are used, that is a guarantee. I can tell you as a family that that's the way they do it. So traffic is not an issue. These camps, especially this way, a number of Eastern Ontario families aren't utilizing Parry Sound or the one in Western Ontario because it's a 5, 6, 7, 8 hour drive for these families. These kids can't handle that. I mean, and they will do it, but a lot of families are missing out. This is giving families a chance. The fact that kids can come to a camp, my daughter was in hospital most of the summer. Had she been able to, she could have come to a camp where an oncologist, who by the way, donates their time, as do the nurses. This camp is very conscientious about nature. They want the kids to get outside after being stuck in this stupid hospital. The camp will look after the wetlands. That's not in each. The lady who just said, if you take away the wetlands, then that's gonna create anxiety and depression. Well, think about the families of kids that are stuck in the hospital. They're full of anxiety and depression. And then the other lady who spoke and said that the species are at risk. Our kids are at risk. Every day, 46 kids are diagnosed with cancer, and every day, 7 die. Our kids are priceless. Land isn't. And the camp will work its magic to make sure that everything is good. This is something our county needs. We have enough traffic coming here in the summer. You don't talk to anybody in the county saying, oh, it's going to add more traffic. No, it's not. And I can tell you where I live, up front, they build houses across the street from me in the wetlands. So why can't we build a camp? They will deal with it in a proper way because they care about these kids and their families. Families can't go and send their kids to camps elsewhere, but a family who can't afford, we spent 20 grand in 4 months because we had to go into Toronto. And the fact of the matter is, families can't afford to go on vacations. We're still paying 15 years after my daughter's death, trying to figure out how to survive. And if our community hadn't come together, we would have been bankrupt 15 years ago. We have no RSPs left, nothing. So a camp like this is free for families, and it gives them what they need. So the issue of traffic, the issue of nature, this camp will provide that and will do it. If you're concerned, go look at the other camps. They do it because they want the kids to be out and explore nature. They're been hooked up to IVs and everything. So all I'm saying is...
I have to ask you to wrap up, please, Evelyn.
Sorry?
I have to ask you to wrap up.
Yep, so I'm saying this camp will fight anxiety, will fight depression, will help our families that deal with this. And there are tons of families. Every year, 1,500 kids are diagnosed with cancer, and we need this Eastern board to be able to have that and experience that. So thank you for this, and just please go ahead and vote for this because you needed to hear it from people who actually use the camp. And the staff is great, but if you had talked to real families, those concerns of the people that were there on the thing, they wouldn't have the concerns if they actually talked to people who are involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't go away. We may have questions. Any member of the committee have questions? Councillor Grosso.
Not so much a question, but I just want to thank you. That's really, really heartfelt, and it is just amazing. Thank you.
Councillor McNaughton.
Yes, thank you also, and I'm so sorry for your many losses. I do want to speak to sort of why people come out and talk about the different perspectives, because it's really important to hear all of them. And I think it helps us navigate complex settings to make it better. So we might not agree with what everybody says, but sometimes it points us in a direction that says we can protect this and provide this. This is the type of development that I think is exactly what you've said, something that wants to bring children into the beautiful place that these people have described. And the beauty of that spot is what makes it so desirable and so important and so precious to provide the service that I'm sorry you weren't able to access with your family. And but I just wanted to say, like, I think their perspectives can help, and I think your perspective absolutely helps to bring home how important this is and how critical it is that we get it right, and that we fine tune it so that it is going to
work
both.
together instead of saying don't do this. And they said no, save it for another time. Our kids don't have time. I didn't know that in 8 months it would be what the heck just happened in our family life. So there isn't time. Now is the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Seeing none, thank you so much, Evelyn, for your comments. That brings us to comments from
And the beauty of that spot is what makes it so desirable.
Amy, if you're still there, we're ready for your next comment.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
Watching the YouTube, got to turn off the YouTube.
But I just.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair? Twice?
Well,
Two deputations
I was
from
just
one
going
person?
to introduce, these are comments from
Okay,
Sandra
can you hear me?
Dowd, being read by
Yeah,
Ms. Bodman.
Amy's reading on behalf of another member.
Great. Okay, so I'm Amy Bodman. I'm reading on behalf of Sandra Dowds, my friend. For the past 10 years, I've been involved as a citizen scientist in the marsh monitoring program sponsored by Birds Canada and coordinated in the county by well-known local naturalist Terry Sprague. Marsh birds are challenging to monitor because they are elusive. They often remain quiet and well concealed within thick wetland vegetation during the day. As a result, special techniques are required to detect them. 4 times every year in June and July, 3 volunteers and I set up monitoring equipment at the edge of the wetlands along Wesley Acres Road, including the one that borders 565. We play a special timed recording of particular marsh bird calls, listening and watching to see if they answer back. The list of birds includes American bittern, least bittern, sora, Virginia rail, and pied-billed grebe. Due to their territorial behavior, marsh birds often vocalize or approach in response to broadcasts of their songs and calls. So it is very exciting when we hear the birds call from out of the very still marsh. According to Terry Sprague, who worked for 20 years with Birds Canada as coordinator for the Bay of Quinte Remedial Action Plan, wetlands, especially cattail marshes, provide vital services such as filtering and purifying water, protecting shorelines, reducing erosion, storing carbon, and providing rich habitat for a diverse range of plants and animals. Unfortunately, wetlands face declines in number, size, and quality. Those that remain are threatened by fluctuating water levels, pollution, filling, draining, and other human impacts, such as encroachment and development. Many marsh-dependent species have been affected and are in need of monitoring, protection, and recovery efforts. Monitoring efforts have seen declines in many wetland-dependent species, and we must be very cautious in how we use these valuable ecological resources so that our efforts don't result in irreparable harm. Once habitat is disturbed or encroached upon in any manner, many species simply will not tolerate this intrusion onto their space and will abandon their territory. This is what I'm afraid of for the Wesley Acres wetland with this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you to Sandra. Does the committee have any questions? Councillor Grosso.
Not so much a question, but I just find it absolutely amazing that people want to hear birds talk back to them rather than hearing kids laughing and enjoying the outside environment. So if birds talking back to you is that so important for you? I don't know. Maybe I'll just shake my head at that.
Am I allowed to respond to that?
You may.
I find that as a bit of an attack, Councillor Grosso. I just want to say that.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Any other question for? No, seeing none. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm just about to invite more members of the audience. Go, just get to the microphone, please, sir, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Lived in my backyard all the time there in the county. The buses came, they were gone in 1 hour. The counselors came, parked, gone for the week. Kids came with their parents. If they were late, they came. The nurses came. One time, there was a nurse, somebody sitting out in my backyard. I said, "What's the problem?" She said, "The boat didn't come to get me, and I'm an oncology nurse, and they can't run if I'm not there." So I jumped in my boat, and we were gone. Birds in that area where they occupied on my land, lots of ducks, lots of ducklings, lots of geese, lots of whatever they are, and swans. We have kingfishers in the habitat, lots of big, nice big snappers and painted turtles. I didn't see the blandings. I don't know what a blanding looks like. The kids would jump in a dock and swim all the way to the island with assistance if they had to. Some wearing life jackets, some just swimming. And got a medal when they got to the other side. What a thing. If you looked at that, any of you guys, nobody could swim across that from the land to the island. It's like I say, they were around me all the time, didn't bother us at all. We enjoyed seeing them. And noise, hear people complaining about noise for other venues that are, we love to sit on our fire and look across the lake and hear the campfire. And all that campfire, 160 of them, plus the staff. So 200 people singing campfire songs. What a wonderful thing. I met lots of parents that arrived late, and we looked after them for a while. But it was incredible what I got to see in all those years. And you got to do it.
Could we just ask you your name, please, for the record? Sorry? Rick Halsey. Madam Clerk? Good. Any questions for Mr. Halsey? No. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to make a comment? Seeing none in that case, I will need a motion then that the comments from the audience be received. Councillor Prinzen, Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Prinzen Nyman motion. We now receive all the comments from the audience, both virtual and in person.
All those in favor? That carries, and being that it's 8:15 and we're just about to get to items for consideration, let's take 10-minute recess. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Thank you, everybody. This brings us to items for consideration, item number 7. And as I intend to make motions in respect of item 7.1, the Campfire Circle project, and as a chair, I can't do that. I will be vacating the chair at this time, and Councillor McNaughton, who is my vice chair, will take over for this item. Take it away, Councillor McNaughton.
Thank you, lucky me. To begin with, how... Was that mine? Oh, you know, it's still acting up.
It's on. We're good.
There we go. The marvels of modern technology. It's not a problem. That's fine. Thank you. So just to move this along, do you want this to be put on the floor first? Would you like a mover and a seconder now?
So first,
or
it
should we go through the?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
To the planner and then to the applicant agent.
So we will do that. Does the planner wish to speak to the notice requirements for the application, describe the proposal, summarize the correspondence, etc.? Please come on up, and I think you have 10 minutes total, I believe, 5 minutes each to do so.
5 minutes for the applicant and agent.
Great. Hi, I'm John McAllister. I'm the head of communications for Campfire Circle. We're a charity that brings healing through happiness to kids with cancer or serious illness and their families. We provide year-round play-based programs in children's hospitals right across Ontario and at our medically supported overnight camps. When kids are diagnosed with cancer or serious illness, they miss out on so many opportunities. They miss out on school, extracurricular activities, time with friends, just the freedom to just be a kid. Campfire Circle exists to help these children take back their childhood, one campfire at a time. Thanks to our on-site medical teams and facilities, our camps empower kids to go from experiencing hospital walls to climbing walls, from IV chemo drips to canoe trips. All of our camp programs are designed to create opportunities for medically fragile children to experience nature, build friendships, and develop the social and emotional development skills they'll need to thrive in the future. We have a bold vision to grow from serving 5,000 campers a year to 10,000. Our 2 overnight camps located in Muskoka and Waterford are already at full capacity and with waiting lists. So we need to build a 3rd medical camp. We hope to build that camp here in PEC so that we can better support families in Eastern Ontario. Campfire Circle was founded in 1983, so we have a 42-year history of operations. We are accredited by Imagine Canada and their standards programs for charities, which recognizes our commitment to operate at the highest level of accountability and transparency. We are a privately funded charity with a wide community of generous donors who fund our programs, all of which are provided free of charge to our families. We have a number of leading philanthropists lining up to help raise the funds that are needed to build this camp here in PEC. We are excited to build this new camp in PEC, and we're committed to being a strong community partner in the county for the many decades to come. And we really look forward to partnering with this community to bring joy, hope, and healing to thousands of kids with cancer or serious illness.
So, and can I ask, before you go further, I'm required to ask, do you agree with the conditions as laid out in the staff report?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, John, for those words. And I'd just like to start by saying thank you to staff, members of the public, members of council for all the input we've received over really the last year on this proposal so far. And I should introduce myself. My name is Miles Weeks. I'm a planner with FO10 working on behalf of Campfire Circle. And we have a number of slides here prepared for you all. The staff report is quite thorough, and I think what I'd really like to focus on tonight is I think I'll skip through a lot of the basic site location details. I think everyone's likely quite familiar with that. But what I'd like to focus on is skipping through. Firstly, just so we're all on the same page, I'd like to start with the latest version of the concept plan. Since the last meeting, there haven't been wholesale changes anywhere that I would particularly draw your attention to. However, the parking area is notable in that it has been broken up into smaller areas, and you can see that towards the north end of the site. It's kind of the gray area, if you will. It's been broken up into multiple smaller areas, and this is to assist with winter maintenance, things of that nature, and it's also farther set back from those wetland features that are to the north and west of the property. Those are really the most notable changes to the plan. So moving on, and we can circle back afterwards if there are any questions or comments, I would like to focus on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, just to touch on that. So the proposal and the provisions that are included within it would rezone the property to a TC, Tourist Commercial -61 zone. And in our previous iteration of the bylaw, it included a variety of uses. So that included the camp, but also resort establishment and things of that nature. And we received feedback that, you know, there were concerns about the use of a resort on the property. And so with staff, we've worked to reduce the permitted uses to only a private camp on the property, as well as accessory uses that you would expect to be associated with a camp. There are also site-specific provisions relating to lot frontage, building height, minimum and maximum parking requirements, permitting shade structures on docks, and clarification regarding MDS setbacks. Now, I think this is really the critical area we want to focus on, and this is what we heard at both of the previous Public Information Center in 2024 at the end of the year, as well as the last public meeting here in Council Chambers. These are just some broad themes, and I think many of these items have been repeated here tonight. So what I'd like...
Sorry, I'm just going to look for a motion to extend for a few more minutes from committee, from the... Thank you, Councillor Grosso and Councillor Nyman, all in favor? That carries, thanks. Just to get you a few more minutes.
Thank you very much. May I know how much, just so I can time myself?
If
I can have the 5 minutes, that would be...
Maximum.
Maximum, okay. So, regarding natural heritage, I think this is one of the more, substantial comments we've received throughout this process. And I guess to address comments from members of the public and council, since the original conception of the plan has been revised, and significantly so, to incorporate a 30-meter setback adjacent to all wetlands on the property. And this is a minimum setback, which is actually greater than 30 meters in many locations. So I think that is worth noting. As I mentioned, the parking area has also been shifted to increase those setbacks. And again, this helps with winter maintenance in particular for snow removal, but also if there's any de-icing required. These kind of things are now farther away from those sensitive environmental features. The project team also prepared a detailed response letter in the latest resubmission, which is available on the county portal for this application. And that report, or letter, I suppose, addressed all of the comments received regarding natural heritage concerns, and it had input from a wide range of professionals that are on the project team. It's my understanding that those responses have been reviewed by county staff, third-party peer reviewers, Quinte Conservation Authority, among others, and generally there are no further concerns regarding natural heritage features or natural hazards both on and around the site. And I think it's also worth noting and taking a moment to think about the fact that this isn't the end of the discussion regarding natural heritage. I appreciate that it is a significant concern, and the camp certainly appreciates that as well. And I don't think this is a situation where it's a case of natural heritage or camp. I think this is a case where we have to consider a balance of priorities, where perhaps we can have everything. And I think that's important to consider. And if approved tonight, this project will continue on through the site plan control process, where it will continue to be reviewed in detail by engineers, county staff, Quinte Conservation Authority, the MECP, any other relevant regulatory bodies would be involved in detail with this process. Catching up here. So I think some of the ongoing work to be completed, just to highlight some of that work, although I will note the staff report summarizes in detail many of the ongoing measures that are to be completed, but there are ongoing monitoring programs and surveys of species at risk that are going to be required and are recommended through, or rather by our ecologist. Also, details regarding the final plans will be formalized through the site plan process, and this includes particular attention to matters such as the septic system, ensuring that it meets all applicable provincial standards and that it won't negatively impact any surface or groundwater features as well. Moving on to permitted uses, I touched on this already, but in response to comments we heard, we've worked with staff to scope down the permitted uses on the property, again, so it's just a camp that's permitted. We did receive comments recently regarding nearby farms, so we being our office at FOTEN have prepared a letter examining the provincial MDS guidelines, and we've determined that the project is clear of all setbacks that are required from nearby farms. Parking I'll skip over because it's been touched on multiple times. With regards to traffic, I won't repeat what has been said by a few individuals here tonight, but ultimately traffic is a matter that the camp has an excellent grasp on. They have the benefit of having operated multiple of these camps elsewhere in the province, and they have an established system whereby campers come by bus. There's carpooling for volunteers and staff, and ultimately this is not a facility where you have hundreds of vehicles coming in every single day. There will of course be single day events, perhaps fundraisers, things of that nature, where you might have a one-day event where traffic's a little bit higher, but for the vast majority of the time traffic will be limited to buses and carpooling. Scale of development, I'll quickly touch on. This was a comment we heard in the
1
previous
minute left, just to let you know.
Thank you very much. I'll quickly note, the proposal only covers 7.5% of the property, and that's excluding the wetlands that are on the property. So I think that's a helpful number to put into perspective the scale of what's actually being proposed here. Now, of course, that doesn't include roads and things like that, but the buildings themselves only cover approximately 7.5% of the property. Finally, we heard questions about servicing for the project, again, related to septic design. The project is serviced by a private well and 2 septic systems. Those septic systems will inherently limit, tying back to scale, those septic systems will inherently limit the development potential on the property. It won't be able to exceed the capacity of those septic systems. And again, all of the servicing related elements will continue to be reviewed in detail by county staff, but also provincial engineers and authority bodies. Finally, the camp is committed to the health and safety of their campers, and of course, they have other camps where they've not had issues with pharmaceuticals and things of that nature leaching into the water. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, now's the time to put it on the floor, isn't it? And I'm just going to check with our clerk. I believe
through to the chair, you may ask the applicant questions.
If you can tell, I was not at the pre-meeting with the clerk to run through the script. Councillor Brainy.
Thank you,
Take
Chair
it away.
McNaughton. Matt,
Be ready to jump off.
It is. You mind if I just first name basis? I can't remember your last name.
Not a problem.
Just wanted to ask. So I'm always thinking through first of all, I love the vision and intent of what you're trying to do, but I'm also cognizant of what some of the environmental concerns from some of the groups that have some knowledge with that. And I'm always kind of considering buy-in and sort of things that would appeal to everybody to try to move forward. I had a conversation with our close friend this afternoon about who has experience with these types of zonings and development, and he sent me a couple of notes that I thought would be interesting to at least ask you about the applicants. And it's in regard to your plan when you're talking about natural heritage features in the forested area. Why could we not consider moving one of those key buildings instead of taking down the forested area to the field? And if you don't mind, if you just indulge me just with a 30-second thing, and he sent me something that really got me thinking, and he said, buildings must always be built on those parts of the land which are in the worst condition, not the best. And he said, on no account place buildings in places which are most beautiful. In fact, do the opposite. Consider the site and its buildings as a single living ecosystem, leave those areas that are most precious, beautiful, and comfortable and healthy as they are, and build new structures in those parts of the site which are least pleasant now. Is it something that you could reconsider to maybe get the buy-in from some of the environmental groups that are showing concern, and perhaps that would create some cohesive buy-in to sort of see your vision through and mitigate some of the concerns that some people are having with the site?
So through the chair, firstly, I think I won't speak for the camp in terms of whether or not they would be willing to entertain moving the buildings. I think what is proposed now is what is envisioned as the most beautiful and cohesive way of developing the site. What I think is important to note is that all of the buildings that are being proposed are on portions of land that are already disturbed. So there are no trees, large trees, that would be considered the significant features. None of those are proposed to be removed. And there has been a detailed analysis of where all of those trees are located and how we can work within those existing features on the property. And of course, that's all outlined in detail in the supporting materials and the detailed responses. But I think in this case, effort has been made to work the project around the natural features, not remove them, not damage them, but work within them and to minimize impact to those features. So I think that would be my response at this time.
Thank you. Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I've got questions actually for both gentlemen. I'll start with John. First of all, thank you for responding to my emails and answering some of my questions. It certainly helped me to, as we're going through this very large and sometimes contentious file. But one of the questions that I believe I asked you in an email was pertains to how many of the, I'll call them non-core uses, are you considering? You know, outside of camps for kids with cancer, the other uses that you were considering, how many of those are going to be part of once it's developed?
Sure. I can give you with context of our Muskoka camp, which is similar kind of scope and usage. Last year we had 10 rentals that were used. 8 of those were from private schools, so they came up for the week with chartered bus, and then we're left the same way and used the program facilities in similar ways. And we had another charity that supports adults with physical disabilities, and we had one of our longstanding corporate partners just have a team engagement retreat. We, in 2025, are actually halving that just because we want to have more capacity for other of our programs. So it's not a huge revenue driver for us. It's actually, in particular, the school groups that come in. Those are our volunteers for the future. Those are our donors of the future, and having them have that exposure and using the camp facility in a very similar way. I mean, it's not kids with cancer or other serious illness, but they're still using the site in a very similar way. So, you know, the idea of outside groups perhaps damaging or misusing the area, that's not an issue, and we have our program staff there to kind of guide activities.
Okay, that's extremely helpful, because I did notice that the bylaw, it's been reduced, and of course it's very clear that it's a private camp, but what you're speaking to are uses that are I'll say, Section IB talks about being subordinate and accessory to the main permitted uses. So that's essentially what this is. Yeah. If it's a group of your sponsors and supporters, that could very easily be considered subordinate and accessory.
And in all transparency, last year as well at our Camp Muskoka site, we had one day that was an open house where people in the community can come and be able to sort of visit and see what's happening. We were actually really privileged to have the mayor and deputy mayor and the MPP's office that was there. But, you know, that's one day, so that's not your typical usage, but we feel it's helpful for the community to see. And one evening a year, we have a bit of a mini fundraising event where, you know, different donors from the community are able to come and have an evening, learn about the camp, and donate funds. So But that's outside usage of our actual core programming. It's very, very limited.
Yeah, okay, so it's not a spa, it's not a resort.
Not
it's
at
a
all.
private camp.
No,
So-
and many of our kids are very immunocompromised, and there's very specific facilities there. We do not have an interest in external groups that we don't know or that we don't trust coming in, and perhaps causing damage to a very expensive site.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you very much. That's very helpful, John. I'll save my Madam Chair. I'll save my second question for after others have spoken.
Thank you. Are there further questions or comments for the proponent? Okay, we're moving right along then. Thank you very much. And stick around. So now I will get a mover and a seconder and put this on the floor. Thank you. I'm going to look to the Hallowell councillors because they begged. So I'm going to throw this over to Councillor Prinzen to move and Councillor Nyman to second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a Prinzen Nyman motion that the Planning and Development Committee receive report DS-14-2025 and that the Planning and Development Committee approve zoning file number Z9-24 for lands described as part of Point M and part of Lot 2 concession military tract Hallowell, Prince Edward.
Thank you. So we'll get the ball rolling with the mover if you would like. If you have questions or comments that you would like to direct towards the author of the report.
No, I will just say I've been working with Campfire Circle for both my terms early on as they approached this day, I guess we could say, and to the speaker who spoke earlier about losing a child, it's something I couldn't imagine, and it's something you hope and pray that never happens to any of us. But seeing this facility that is going to be there for these kids to enjoy their last days, if that's the plan, or their last time, or hopefully recover and make friends for life, is something that I fully support. I can understand and appreciate the nature thing, but this isn't something where they're going in and filling the land, wrecking the trees as a development. So without saying too much, I'm happy to see it here today, and I thank staff for bringing it forward and for recommending approval. And I thank everybody at Campfire Circle for what they've done to get it to this point. And I will be supporting it, and I hope we all can get behind it as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got Councillor Hirsch next. Okay, Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight I want to remember that we are making a planning decision, not a decision on whether a very worthwhile children's camp is a good idea. Of course it's a good idea and is most welcome in the county, but the question before us tonight is whether the proposed location is the right one, and is it in accordance with our official plan and its policies. I believe, along with many representatives of environmental organizations, as you've heard, that this is not the right location. First off, however, I don't see what the rush is to make this decision. Our interim control bylaw 102/2023, which directly affects this property, is still in place until May 22nd. And there is no motion before us to waive the ICBL. Secondly, having met recently with the proponent, I've learned that site development is not expected to start until 2026 or 27. So what is the rush? Well, why should we delay consideration? I think we need to look at the elements of our official plan that, in my opinion, have not been considered in the staff report, elements which are problematic for the plans we have all seen. Section 3.1.47 of the official plan says this: development shall not be permitted within woodlands identified in Schedule B natural features or areas, or any significant woodlands identified during the planning process through criteria in the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry's Natural Heritage Reference Manual. The staff report does not address this issue. Ecological Services, the EIS consultant for the project, has identified the two woodlands on the property as being significant in accordance with MNRF's rules. yet there is development proposed in both woodlands, cabins, trails, roadway, etc. Ecological Services suggested that maybe the official plan should be amended, but that's not what's on the agenda right now. That's not what our OP says. It says that no development is allowed in woodlands. Secondly, the conjunction of shoreline designation and natural heritage protections has not been adequately addressed in my view. The shoreline designation policies at 4.3.1.2 of the official plan states that the county may refine the list of permitted uses, this is in shoreland, of the implementing zoning bylaw. Development of any specific permitted use shall be subject to the policies of this plan, the official plan. So let's go to policies. Well, we have natural heritage policies. And at policy 3.1.3 in the natural heritage section, we define Schedule B natural features and areas collectively and specify them as including the natural core areas, which we've all seen on the map. And we know that this project is fully within natural core area. And then policy 8 says that the approach taken in this plan is to establish first an environmental protection designation where development is specifically precluded. Second, to identify natural core areas and linkages that are the broad protection areas within the county which contain an abundance of important natural features and functions and provide the opportunity to maintain the crucial ecological connections between identified natural core areas and for protecting the functionality of these areas for the long term. The project is fully within the Bloomfield South Natural Core Area. So here we have a standoff between the permissions of the shoreline designation and the restrictions of our natural heritage policies. Shoreline project mandated in the official plan, but shelved by council last week, would help resolve this issue. Finally, I think there are some necessary protections which have not been adequately addressed in the draft zoning bylaw we're being asked to approve tonight. No development in the significant woodlands, exclusion fencing in key locations to protect the movement of Blanding's turtles, culverts installed under the access road to ensure movement of water between sections of the provincially significant wetland, agreement that all of the recommendations of the proponent's EIS and the peer reviews are to be carried out, a site evaluation report as required by our official plan, sewage treatment study along with stormwater management plan and surface flow studies to ensure the quality of water entering the lake, especially given the likely presence of medication pharmaceuticals in the effluent. So given that there does not seem to be real urgency to make this decision when the time is right, Madam Chair, I propose to make a referral motion to refer this back to staff to resolve these issues.
Okay, thank you.
When the time is appropriate.
At this time, would you like to specifically direct any of that as a question to staff? You don't have to,
No,
just a question.
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Pennell.
I appreciate my fellow councillors' comments, but as a planning board, we have a responsibility to look at all angles. We've made several decisions that might very easily go against their thoughts, but the end result is if we make a decision, I believe with my whole heart that we also have to consider what the decision is. I don't think every one of us has spoken at different times about concerns on things going through. But at the end of the day, our responsibility is to look at each individual item that's before us. And I, for one, will be supporting the motion for it, and I also will be calling for a recorded vote on it. And the reason for a recorded vote, I believe, no matter which way we vote, everyone will know. But I would hope we'd have a unanimous towards letting this proceed, because we can't replace their kids, and Mrs. Wilson, I saw what she's went through as a parent, and it brings tears to your heart. Let's help the kids. Forget all our others.
Thank you, Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I fully support this, and Councillor Prinzen basically said, you know, everything that needs to be said. But I do have one question because it kind of came up about the septic system and it leaching into the water and everything. So I guess we can ask staff, because I missed the opportunity to ask the owner there. So what type of septic system is going in there? Is it a small package plant?
Through the chair, my understanding is it'll be 2 large septic fields that will work together, and they still need to be designed and approved by the Ministry of the Environment.
Yes. So that's what I'm trying to get at here, is that it doesn't matter what you're putting in as a septic system. You still, the ministry has to be involved, and they have to pass it, and everything has to work. So it's the same as at your house. You know if something's not working because you'll see it, and you deal with that right away. So I mean, to have somebody have a thing in there that says, oh, you've got to, you know, prove that the system's going to work. Well, you know, that's putting undue burden on them, as far as I'm concerned, because it does work, and the ministry will approve that. So to me, you know, this is the place, and these, just, you know, these are kids coming that are suffering from cancer, and they're not going to be running around ripping up the trees and everything like that. They're there for that 1 week, if I understand, to have fun, and as Councillor Grosso said, to be with somebody that is dealing with the same thing they are, and they're feeling normal. So the idea of, you know, they're going to destroy the land and everything else, that's just, you know, I don't agree with that, and that's not the right approach to be taken, because these kids are not going to be destroying the land. And the people that's putting this on, they've said right here, they don't want people coming in that's going to destroy things. They're putting a lot of money into this, and they want it to succeed. So they're going to make sure that everything goes as planned. So I fully support what's going on here.
Thanks very much, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like what you said. I do, Brad, wonder what normal means anymore these days. I'm kind of remembering the Bruce Cockburn song where he says the trouble with normal is it only gets worse. But unfortunately, I've been one of those parents with a child for almost a year, and sick kids in intensive care. And I have to say that many, many scholars have addressed the issue of children with cancer in the natural environment. And they pretty much unanimously come up with all of their research. I mean, you can Google it, there's reams of research, that nature-based activities are very important for those kids because they can be absolutely essential for the health and well-being, not just of the kids, but for the families, extended families, and friends, of course. When we talk about nature, well, there's the magazine Nature. And that magazine, Nature, has done a number of articles about how essential it is for children with cancer, facing palliative situations, to be in natural environments. They've also done articles about the general value of nature and being in natural environments for just overall pediatric care. And in the United States, at the moment anyway, there is still something called the National Institutes of Health.
For now.
Pardon?
For now.
For now.
Sorry.
Well, on that point, we can all do something to try and prevent that. But it exists, and it is the place for research, and the place for research regarding children with cancer and what's good for them. And nature-based interventions and natural environment exposure are at the top of that list. Not only for physical well-being, but for psychological well-being, social well-being, spiritual well-being, and health outcomes where they are possible, but even more important, where those health outcomes are palliative and there is no positive outcome. So I trust these people. I trust their track record. I trust our process with staff. And importantly, I applaud their humanity. Smart people have lots of options in their life, and that smart, dedicated people are doing what we are about to make a decision about today is to be applauded and celebrated. We should express our gratitude that you're doing this. So thank you. And I also, their values are good, their vision is good, their priorities are good. The balance they talk about is essential. I mean, it's just all impressive. So my bottom line is, we should not be putting telephone poles in the spokes of these people. We should be putting gratitude and wind in your sails. I will support this. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Brainy?
Thank you, Councillor McNaughton. I completely, wholeheartedly embrace what Councillor Roberts just had to say. And I just wanted to say I'll also be supporting Councillor Prinzen and Nyman. To me, these scenarios, and we have a lot of them come around the table, and I always weigh them with practicality. For instance, I felt the Warings Creek watershed should be protected at all costs. When it comes to weighing a scenario like this, due to the nature and the vision, I like the intent, I like the vision. I feel that this will be an asset to these kids, and I also wholeheartedly believe that this will be an asset for Prince Edward County moving forward, and I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I share the sentiments that I just heard from Councillor Brainy and eloquently spoken by Councillor Roberts. And I will say from the start, I will be supporting this. It's an extensive package. We've all read it. I came to the conclusion a while ago that every step of the way, this organization, Campfire Circle and the planners and engineers that they have hired have gone out of their way to try to accommodate the rules that we currently have in place. And kudos to them. We don't often see developers that are willing to do that. Some like to push against the tide, and I don't see that happening here. I'm going to steer clear of the emotional side of it, because I just simply want to thank our staff specifically for demanding a higher level of scrutiny on this, because of the sensitivity, the potential sensitivity. We heard it from the public, and we're all well aware of it. So thank you to everybody, and I very much look forward to supporting this. I do have one question, and it came to me as Councillor Hirsch was talking. Madam Chair, a question for either of the planners. With regards to the ICBL, which is specific to the shoreland designation, if I'm not mistaken, given council has decided to not move forward with that, would it be appropriate that there be an amendment, or when would be the appropriate time to cancel the ICBL? Because it clearly has nothing whatsoever to do with this file anymore, given that council has decided to not move forward. In Councillor Nyman's words, it's dead. We killed it.
Through the chair, I don't know if I would mix the two issues together. However, if there was a willingness to make a motion to exempt this file from the ICBL, we could include that in the decision.
Okay. Well, if that simplifies things, if I could get a seconder, I would absolutely like to add an amendment to this motion that's on the floor.
You have a
Councillor
seconder?
Branderhorst, that the, however you want to word it, that
Campfire Circle will be exempted
Be-
from the ICBL?
from the Shoreland ICBL, however you want to word it, yeah. Doesn't have to be complicated. I think we all understand what it's meant to do.
We'll give Madam Clerk a moment to jot that down.
And I guess that could serve as a notice of motion for a future motion.
It can't. You still have to make your notice of motion.
I know, but
At
I'm
a
just,
proper
I'm
meeting
vocalizing it.
During
I'm
the
not
announcement
making it
section
official.
as per procedural bylaw. Do you want it allowed interim control
Interim-
bylaw?
Yeah, well, so everybody knows, yeah.
So through the chair, it would read that rezoning file number Z9-24 Campfire Circle, 565 Wesley Acres Road, Ward 2, Bloomfield, Hallowell, be exempt from the interim control bylaw.
Yes.
Thank you.
You need to include Shoreland's interim control bylaw. Just to be specific.
So, and this is duly seconded, so this motion, this amendment is on the floor. Questions, comments
Recorded vote.
on this one? On the amendment?
Oh, I thought they were both being.
No, just the amendment, just Councillor St. Jean's amendment to exempt this file from the confines of the interim control bylaw regarding shorelands. Okay, so I don't see any other hands. Everyone's clear on what this motion, no? Mayor Ferguson, you're just chomping at the bit. Okay, all in favor? So that carries. Now, moving on. I think there was someone else, but Councillor Maynard, if I've forgotten someone, my apologies.
Madam Interim Chair. So I'll just say that, I'm happy with the progress that this file has made. And I would like to state that asking a question of why I was here was not necessarily a derogatory remark towards this camp at a previous meeting. I will ask, so on page 45 of the report where it says staff recommended bylaw would place the site into a special tourist commercial TC 61 zone, but would include provisions that will limit the proposed uses, private camp, building structures, accessory used for recreational facilities, convenience store, which the applicant in his comments has agreed to. When does that amendment, is that, because it's not, like the motion that we are going to read does not include that, so just some.
Through the chair, the motion would be to approve the bylaw, which is in the agenda package. And
Yeah, okay,
the
so it just
bylaw lays
says-
out the permitted uses.
Yeah, okay, all right, so it just says the Planning Development Committee received report ES 1425, and then zoning files said 924. Is that all encompassed in that?
Yes.
Okay, because it's not, yeah, okay, because it doesn't specifically talk about your recommendation, just making sure that was there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further comments or questions? Mayor Ferguson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to repeat so much of what has already been said because everybody's comments have been heartfelt, and certainly the way I feel about this. I've had some experience when I was younger in a camp that enabled kids with disabilities to escape their home life or their hospital life and get 1 week of fun and sunshine in a controlled environment where they could receive the help they needed or wanted while doing stuff that kids do in nature. When this came forward for discussion, I was struck by the people who were involved in doing some research into how the organization functions. And I think part of their challenge and the timeline, 2027 or whatever the dates to begin construction, are predicated on the basis of raising money. And a substantial amount of money has to be raised, but it is coming from out of people's pockets, be they foundations or individuals or whomever. And then there's the matter of the medical staff and others that volunteer their time to enable these kids to enjoy, I just referred to, 1 week away from their normal day-to-day life. And then there are the, consider the volunteers that will be coming forward and helping out and assisting. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. This is not a big profit-oriented moneymaker. This is to enable kids to enjoy that 1 week, some of whom it may be their only 1 week. And it's difficult not to get emotional about this. Listening to Ms. Wilson and her comments really drove home to me just how fortunate so many of us are. So I thank you for your comments, and I thank everybody involved with Campfire Circle for their engagement and for bringing this to Prince Edward County, because I fully agree this is wonderful, a wonderful opportunity for our community to demonstrate its heart and its compassion. And I fully support this. And this is something that we should be very proud of. And I hope we will be proud of as this moves forward. And I look forward to updates and whatever else Campfire Circle will provide to us. And I want to thank staff for all the work they put into this terrific report. But obviously I'm going to support this. I think this is important, but it's really, really important for those kids. Thanks.
Are there any further comments or questions from committee? Okay, so I have a few questions. Mine are a little more specific. And in keeping with some of the comments we've had already, I would also like to offer an apology to Councillor Hirsch, who mentioned a motion and respectfully is waiting till the round is up, and I let another motion scoop it, and I apologize. So a few things. Now, I'm really interested in all the comments that have been made and what I see in the report that talks about focusing development to currently disturbed lands. We have heard about and I think some of the language on page 43, it says the development avoids areas that are constrained by the presence of natural heritage features. And I think it's repeated on further down when you say that the proposed camp will be required to direct the development specifically to those areas. We've also heard some concerns about significant woodlands. Is that one of those areas that you're going to specifically be seeking to avoid when it comes time to finalize the site plan?
So through the chair, most of the site has had some sort of disturbance. And while there is some forested areas, they're not significant forests. So there is opportunity to develop within them, as Miles had described, not to eliminate the forest or to clear cut or anything like that, but to create some development within it that works within those areas.
Okay, and I just want to make sure, because you do say in, and I think it was, I believe it was page 45, you use the word restaurant, but in the bylaw, I think it speaks to dining area. The word restaurants, not, it is strictly dining area that we're talking about, kitchens and dining areas, or dining facilities, it might have said. So that is specifically, it's never going to, it looks from the bylaw that I'm looking at like it is not reckoning with a public restaurant, like the word restaurant is simply just a word that remained in the report.
Through the chair, the bylaw does not permit providing services to the traveling public.
That is how I understood, just it triggered me. Triggered, sorry. The conditions, the recommendations of the EIS, which you have listed as recommendations on, I think it's around that same area, page 42 or 43 maybe. Those are conditions that you plan to adhere to quite strictly?
So through the chair, all the recommendations from the technical reports will form part of the site plan agreement. So yes, they are requirements.
Thank you. And hearing the comments from the proponents, all of your answers and their comments earlier does build some confidence that some care will be taken. And I would suggest that if there's any way to reduce any hardening, that be done with regards to parking areas, reductions in road widths, et cetera, as is possible when it comes to the site plan process. I'm going to look back to Councillor Hirsch. We still do have quite a conflict in our policies. And with that in mind, I would turn back to Councillor Hirsch and see if he wants to bring anything forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I will. And as you might imagine, I've given up on the idea that we're going to defeat this. We just need to make it as good as we can. So, but I want to take up the woodland point first, because that is, these woodlands by the proponent's own EIS consultant are significant woodlands. So they can't be developed in. I don't understand how planning can sort of excuse that as being previously disturbed areas. So that is one definite concern. We would want to see, I would want to see the things that I listed, and the clerk does have these in the form of a motion. Either the subject of further review by a referral back to staff, or at a minimum by putting them in the conditions of the draft zoning bylaw, which is before us. I will note too that Councillor Brainy asked the proponents in the question period about potentially moving the cabins out of the woodlands, and was basically told no, they weren't interested in doing that. So I've got a real problem with the official plan here.
Just to correct, I don't think, I think he said he wasn't aware whether the proponents were willing to do that or not, but I'm splitting hairs.
Sorry.
Through to the chair.
So, yeah.
Just before we proceed, can we get a motion to extend past 3 hours?
Motion to extend, please.
sure.
Thank you. Prinzen, Nyman, all in favor? Thank you, that carries. Minority vote.
So this is the list of items that I had mentioned, and some have actually been covered. I mean, staff has indicated that the EIS and peer review recommendations will indeed form part of site plan review. So I'll take that for cash, and this meeting is being recorded, right? But things like, can we add exclusion fencing for the turtles and culverts under the road to ensure movement of the water in the provincially significant wetland?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Matt.
Through the chair, just a reminder that site plan applications do get circulated to council and to Quinte Conservation, M&R, MOE, but specifically back to council, so that if there are comments such as these or in addition to, there is an opportunity to comment and make sure that they are included in the site plan and the site plan agreement.
Councillor Hirsch, would you like to respond, or do you want to? You don't have to, but
if we can be assured, that all of these issues will be dealt with at site plan stage, then that's fine. I guess the one legal question still remaining is the woodland.
Order, please, in the House. Thank you very much. Continue. Sorry.
I was just saying the one legal issue remaining is the development of the woodlands, which.
Thank you, our Manager of Planning. Thank you, Mike Michaud.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Hirsch. We're looking at the wording now, but my understanding is that through the EIS, the word significant was used as significant to the lot, not significant as in our official plan, where the significant is anything over 40 hectares. So,
excuse me, or as determined by MNRF standards, which is what the EIS consultant used.
Well, that's why I indicated that we're looking at it, but as we go through the site plan approval process, if indeed that's the case, then we could rejig the site to move those buildings out of that particular woodland.
So you're saying that you will ensure that the law is followed correctly?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I will take it then that everything will be looked at.
That is very good.
And that we will all have an opportunity to check this out as we get to site plan.
Thank you, Councillor Hirsch, and thank you for bringing these detailed looks forward.
Thank you. So I will withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
Not that it hadn't been seconded anyway.
No, but it's still good. That was a supportable list, and good that we pay a close eye to getting it right. So it's appreciated. Thank you. Now, I did see a couple of hands go up. You're just ready to vote. Councillor Pennell? Okay. You're ready for a recorded vote then, Councillor Pennell? I will call the vote and you're going to start us off.
Councillor Pennell?
Yay.
Councillor Nyman?
In favor.
Councillor Prinzen?
In favor.
Councillor Roberts?
Very much in favor.
Councillor St. Jean?
Absolutely in favor.
Councillor Grosso?
Very much in favor.
Councillor Branderhorst?
Yay.
Councillor Engelsdorfer?
In favor.
Councillor Hirsch?
Opposed.
Councillor McNaughton?
In favor.
Councillor Brainy?
In favor.
Councillor Maynard?
In favor of.
Mayor Ferguson?
100% in favor.
That carries 12-1.
Order, please. Thank you. Now, at this time, I will return the chair to Councillor Hirsch to adjourn the meeting. Oh, no, to do the next item. So back over to you, Councillor.
Thank you for your good work, Councillor McNaughton. This brings us to item 7.2, items approved under delegated authority. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Prinzen, Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Prinzen St. Jean motion that the items approved under delegated authority bylaw 98-2020 as amended be received for information.
All those in favor? That carries. And finally, a motion to adjourn. Councillor Branderhorst and Councillor Prinzen.
This is a Branderhorst Prinzen motion that this meeting now adjourn at 9:26 p.m.
All in favor? That carries.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.